Evil 4.
How many games can you say truly impacted the video game industry and changed it forever? Before the wave of live service and forever games, this happened a lot more often. Of course there's Pong, because it's essential to video games being in the home. Around there somewhere is Space Invaders because that's iconic. Then jumping forward, you've got the likes of Super Mario. That, along with the SNES, helped bring back video games after the crash. And we can put some of the blame on ET for this, but not all of it. Wolfenstein 3D and Doom helped lay the foundations for first-person shooters. Then GoldenEye and Halo broke them into the living room, because it had dominated the PC space for so long.
Whoa! It makes me shake just thinking about it.
Mortal Kombat, and to a lesser extent Night Trap, really heated up the debate about violence in video games, which led to the creation of the ESRB and other ratings boards. Then you've got Mario 64 that helped break video games into the third dimension, away from sprites and fixed camera angles, whilst GTA 3 was one of the first true 3D open worlds. There might have been some before this game, but this one really got the attention of the masses. And between all that, Valve with Half-Life essentially demonstrated you could tell a story in a video game, but without cutscenes, or taking control away from the player. Because back then a lot of devs relied on flashy pre-rendered cutscenes. And yes, I know I missed out a couple of big games along the way, but I can't mention every major game in video game history. Give a guy a break. But this is the internet, so you probably won't. But trust me, this video is long enough as it is. You can see that by the timecode. It's longer than my first 3 videos on Resident Evil combined. I really do get a bit carried away, so it doesn't hurt to truncate the timeline just a little bit. But one video game that really did change video games forever is Resident Evil 4. But really it's a surprise that this game was so influential, as it had a pretty rocky development cycle before the final product was released.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
It feels weird calling such a beloved game a product, but this is one of the great examples of commerce and creativity coming together.
I'll buy it at a high price. Thank you.
Now, despite this being the 4th Resident Evil, it actually wasn't anywhere near being the 4th one made. Resident Evil 4 dropped in 2005, and it was actually the 13th game released in the series since 1996, 5 of these games being mainline entries, and another being an excellent remake of the first. Then the rest of spin-offs, or just gimmick games. Some were forays into first person, and even online. Well, for a select few markets and regions anyway. Man, I really wish I got to play Outbreak as intended. Shinji Mikami would return to direct Resident Evil 4 after Hideki Kamiya left the project, which is really a what if for the series. Kamiya doesn't really go in for horror, as he doesn't really like being scared, so he wanted his version of Resident Evil 4 to be more stylish. This just wouldn't have worked for the franchise in my opinion, at least at such an early stage. Capcom obviously knew the man was cooking though, as we got Devil May Cry from this instead, a series that I like on the side. This was just one of the 4 versions of Resident Evil 4 that was scrapped, and it also wasn't the first, or last time a Resident Evil game would go through many versions before coming to market, with Resident Evil 1.5 being the most famous of the bunch. And thanks to leaks over the years, you can even find a playable version of this online. The second version of Resident Evil 4 was dubbed the Fog version, which was led by Hiroshi Shibata. It would see Leon be infected and hallucinate a lot, but among other things, it would be too intensive for consoles at the time. The third version is the famous Hookman version, that honestly, any RE fan has seen clips of by now. It really feels like whenever a new game is revealed, there's a certain section of the fanbase that wants to see the Hookman back. But come on, he's not going to be in the game, so let's just move on. Another version would see the return of an old reliable, being the traditional zombie, but this one never really seemed to gain much ground. And random fact, I was so initially turned off by the fact that Resident Evil was ditching zombies, it really pissed me off. Back when this game was being previewed, we didn't really have footage of it, so you had to go to magazines for the latest. I bloody love the undead, and with each entry of Resident Evil, I felt like they got so much squeeze out of this subgenre, and of course Raccoon City. But inevitably things need to move on, and adapt in new ways, or they become stale and eventually die. So just looking at where Resident Evil is today, especially with Resident Evil Requiem, Capcom haven't always made the right call. But Resident Evil is riding such a high at the moment, and hell, they gave me Dead Rising just a year later.
I've covered wars, you know.
Resident Evil 4 wasn't just a huge creative turning point for the series, but it's also used as a key piece in the console wars, before the dark times of social media, when it all felt a bit more fun. Capcom essentially got into bed with Nintendo, in a very mercenary-like fashion, as before this Resident Evil was seen as very PlayStation-centric, to the point that Sony commanded enough power that they got Resident Evil 3 on their machine, It might not have been the original Resident Evil 3, but Capcom put 3 on the box. Now I know this has been debated over the years, but come on, I love Jill's last escape through Raccoon City, but it's just so clear that Code Veronica was the next major step for the franchise. This all before fixed camera angles and tank controls were eventually ditched. No one will be left to fade into the annals of history. But unfortunately for Capcom, they made the wrong bet by putting Code Veronica on the Dreamcast, because Sega quickly took that one behind the woodshed, meaning that Capcom slapped an X on it and eventually ported it to PS2. Was this a reluctant move by Capcom though, as the immaculate Resident Evil remake and the follow-up Zero never made it to the PS2? Because of course for the longest time they were GameCube exclusives, until they were both ported to the PS4 and Xbox One anyway. But around the time Resident Evil Zero and Remake landed on the GameCube, ports of Resident Evil 2 and Nemesis both hit the purple box. As beloved as most of these games were, some people really hate Zero, but there's so much to love in that game. It just needed bloody item boxes and a bit of boss variety.
How is this possible? Help! No, this can't be.
Back to Capcom and Nintendo getting into bed with each other. A deal was inked for the Capcom 5. This really felt like one of the last times Nintendo made a real push in the old console wars. They made big moves to get Resident Evil as a whole away from PlayStation, including Resident Evil 4, when really it was Nintendo's fault that PlayStation even existed in the first place, as they fucked over Sony with the Nintendo PlayStation. Little did Nintendo know that they would spawn their greatest rival with this business move. And now Sony's business is primarily PlayStation. Sony might not even exist without PlayStation at this point. Product number 3, Killer 7, Beautiful Joe.
And one more thing, Resident Evil 4 will be scary than ever before. Don't pee your pants.
All came out of the Capcom 5. But things didn't go to plan, so the 5th game, Dead Phoenix, was cancelled. I won't be diving into the other games, but this initiative failed hard. So hard in fact, that Resident Evil 4 would land on PlayStation 2 the same year it came out on GameCube, and you can't really point the blame to Capcom or any of their games, as Nintendo's GameCube was really taking a different direction than the PlayStation 2, and then Xbox came along to eat their lunch as well. Sure, after this Nintendo would sell a bunch of consoles, like of course the Wii, but they were really going for a different market. A more family-friendly one that essentially revolves around their own IP now. At least we finally got Resident Evil 0 out of all of this though, as that was meant to come out on the Nintendo 64. After Resident Evil 4 was ported to the PS2, it would basically show up on anything that could run it, a bit like Doom for the new generation. Many say the Wii version is the best version of Resident Evil 4, and I won't totally disagree with them. But the real ones who love Resident Evil 4 bought and suffered through the port on the iPhone. Back when real games were on phones. I've bought this game no less than 8 times in my life, and not including the remake. If I had the money to waste, I'd get the VR version too, but I've played it so it kind of counts. And come on, VR was never going to take off for gaming. It's just a cool gimmick. So as I've done before on this channel, I'm going to take a look back at this game, but not in a pseudo-retrospective type way, as this game, or well, this version of Resident Evil 4, never received a platinum trophy, which is criminal if you ask me, but hey, like Capcom, I'll adapt to cover this game, because it isn't just very important to me, but video games as a whole. So I'm Ben Roy and join me, as I take a deep dive into a game that really did change video games, Resident Evil 4. And just out of old habits, the list consists of 9 bronze trophies, 2 silver trophies, and 1 gold trophy. Oh, and no platinum trophy. Because this list dates back to an era where downloadable games weren't treated the same as ones on disc, and now we're in an era where basically every game is downloadable, and only a fraction are on disc, so games are allocated less gamer score, and this inevitably trickled down to PlayStation and their trophy system. Now I get this for smaller games like Limbo or Explosion Man or anything like that, or really anything else in the summer of arcade, but classics like Resident Evil 4 really deserve their own list. 8 trophies, bronze and silver alike, are dedicated to playing and beating the game, as well as a few bosses in the main story, and another is dedicated to unlocking all the bottle caps. 1 gold is dedicated to beating the game on the highest difficulty, and finally, the last for unlocking all costumes, which is the game's sneaky way of saying, oi, play separate ways as well, which since the repackaging of this game on PS2, came with every version of the game going forward, and it starred the legendary Ada Wong. So what more do you want? Is this a disappointing trophy list? Well, yeah. And there isn't a platinum, so what's up with that? But you're playing Resident Evil 4, so it's not all bad.
Maybe you forgot, Wesker. I don't always play by your rules.
Now since I started this channel some 2 odd years ago now, my method of covering games has just changed a little bit. So if you're watching these Resident Evil videos back at a later date, or I've compiled them into a big compilation, be ready for a slight shake up. Resident Evil 4 wasn't the first Resident Evil game to ditch pre-rendered backgrounds, fixed camera angles or tank controls, even if there is still tank control-like nature to this game. But in a true third dimension, after RE4, we was in a new era of Resident Evil, one that dropped all pretenses of survival horror and slanted more towards action, one that would consume the franchise like a virus for a fair few years. Alongside the Paul W.S. Anderson films, Resident Evil was more spectacle than scares, seeking thrills rather than chills. There was still some of the old DNA of Resident Evil here, but it's being rewritten by the father of the series, Shinji Mikami, who essentially wanted to make his own game, but he had to keep it within the trappings of Resident Evil, because we live in a world of franchises and how they're marketed. Now don't get me wrong, I love my fair share of sequels, adaptations and remakes, but we should all have a healthy dose of something new once in a while. Now I'm not sure if Mikami knew just how much he would change the franchise at the time, in a sense that Resident Evil would never be the same again, as it would almost go on to consume itself with Resident Evil 6, a game that plays alright to its own merits I guess, but it just went too far in almost every aspect. At least playing as Leon in Resident Evil 4 is somewhat grounded. He doesn't quite feel like a superhuman yet, and he still can't move and shoot. The camera is now behind his shoulder, and tightens in once the player aims, a move that I'm sure nobody at Capcom thought would take off like wildfire. The 7th generation of consoles was just right around the corner. And well, literally every game that wasn't trying to be a first-person shooter was trying to adapt this approach. It's the whole justification for Dead Space even existing. Then Epic Games would take this formula, slap on some cover mechanics, and run with it with Gears of War. It really feels like the trend that Resident Evil 4 started didn't really simmer down until the 9th generation. By then the gold rush was well and truly over, as a new trend took off. One mechanic that players had to contend with in the PS1 trilogy, and then Code Veronica X, was that every shot they took was essentially a dice roll. You can angle a shotgun up in the air to almost guarantee a critical hit, but sometimes it would take an entire mag to put a zombie down. Here in Resident Evil 4, the player can target any part of the body they wish, but for some reason, these disgruntled locals don't just go down with a single shot to the face. Wonder why that is. This meant that headshots weren't always a game changer that players had been led to believe. Something that was really made a thing around the time of GoldenEye. In Resident Evil 4, aiming at the limbs is really the way to go, especially on higher difficulties, expending as little ammo as possible as you go for all sorts of melee attacks, because Leon's learned a lot of moves since his time in Raccoon City. You can't beat roundhouse kicks or suplexes, it's just a fact, especially as I grew up watching wrestling. But as cool as it might be to take a Ganado to Suplex City, the roundhouse kick is just so damn effective with crowd control. These button prompts also changed the nature of combat in Resident Evil, because before now players had to keep their distance from zombies and other BOWs, but nah, not now. Leon gets up and personal to dispatch these foes. And speaking of button prompts, they're sharp in a major way here, with one of the earlier uses of QuickTime events. These are really Marmite mechanics for a lot of players out there, because they do serve a purpose. Well, for games that want to slip in and out of cutscenes seamlessly, while still having the player engaged. They weren't a new mechanic by any stretch of the imagination when Resident Evil 4 came out, but it was many players' introduction to them. It hadn't been long since devs were shifting away from pre-rendered cutscenes, which are essentially movies exported from someone's timeline, and triggered at certain points in the game.
Do something, cop!
After you. Now!
This all back when the PS1 needed a little more help with dramatic scenes. But yeah, QTEs are littered throughout this game, and I'd go as far to say as most of them work, even if I forget that button bashing was the main feature of so many games back in the day. Like I swear every game found a way for us to button bash. In 2005 though, QTEs really enhanced a certain knife fight later.
What do you want?
Running on the MT Framework engine, a lot of these are almost seamless. Now there is a little bit of hitching here and there, even when playing this PS4 port on my PS5, but the game wouldn't feel real without it. I know this sounds antiquated, but part of me misses these hitches in games. You know, the way you knew a big load was coming, or some shit was about to go down. The other major mechanics that were introduced here was a full revamp of the inventory system, and of course the merchant.
Got something that might interest you.
Both of these are almost as popular as the bloody game itself, or at least it feels that way anyway. Managing inventories is mostly a hassle in games. For me at least, I just want to get back to playing the bloody game. And I hate the idea of swapping out new loot or gear every f***ing 5 seconds. Then running out of space or being over encumbered. It's just never fun. Breakable weapons can also get fucked too. They can work, but only in certain scenarios. But in Resident Evil 4, managing the inventory is a game in itself. Simply put, it's a pseudo version of open world Tetris, but once you fill a line, thankfully Leon's doesn't disappear. I don't know how this pretty simple system managed it, but somehow arranging weapons, ammo and other knickknacks just hits different, and gets that dopamine going. The fact you can auto-arrange in the remake is just heresy. Oh, and as I mentioned it, I won't really be referring to the remake much in this video, or at all really. Not because I hate it or anything, I actually love it, but it's going to get its own video. The Merchant has become a big part of video game lore at this point. Well, for players around back then. I'm not sure how the Roblox generation get on these days, so I'm going to keep my distance.
Got a selection of good things on sale, stranger.
With this hooded mystery figure, this meant that Leon, and the player controlling him, essentially had a way to get new gear on the road. Killing enemies would sometimes result in drops, which could be ammo, or mostly pesetas, and these have one use, to go in the merchant's pocket, all in exchange for weapons, attachments and upgrades. Blowing this wide open in Resident Evil, this system wasn't the first of its kind, but it was the best. It also meant that players didn't have to abandon weapons they loved, in favour for something with higher stats, because you could continue to upgrade the weapons you got, and just sell the new gun you found, or never buy it when it comes up in the merchant store. This is something I do once I get my hands on the Red 9 and Riot Shotgun. I'm not saying they're the best combination of weapons in this game, but the real ones know.
Thank you.
Of course you need a sniper too to complete your arsenal, for all those trusty headshots and other parasite-based enemies. Who is the merchant though, and why is he here? How does he manage to navigate the village, castle, and then get to the island? We'll never know because it really doesn't matter, and Capcom aren't going to bring him back anyway. He's just cool as hell though, and essential to the design of Resident Evil 4. Why he never returned though is just baffling. The merchant and inventory system in Resident Evil 5 is just shit compared to this, and gets even worse in Resident Evil 6. But when we got something similar to this in Resident Evil Village, it did bring a smile to my face.
I've been waiting for you, Mr. Winters.
Too bad all the merchants lost their job to AI in Resident Evil Requiem though. Low blow there, Capcom.
Stranger.
As mentioned, zombies are out. Because to shake up the combat in Resident Evil, Mikami just wanted to present new challenges that zombies just couldn't handle. This was back when everyone was loyal to the Romero rule of zombies. Now that's almost out the window these days. With the zombies in Resident Evil Requiem basically acting like Ganados at this point, they make for fun gameplay, but they're just not really the zombies I love. Back to Resident Evil 4, before Leon was a certified badass, he's no longer a rookie cop in his early 20s. Now after being forced into the service of the Division of Security Operations, or DSO for short, in theory the standard undead wouldn't present much of a challenge for him. There'd be little more than cannon fodder. This is where Ganados step in. Made up of the village population to start with, they wield weapons, run, and even think, and seemingly coordinate their actions, whereas zombies just shamble towards their next victim. If these were people just being mind controlled, it would be a little lame. But we come to find out later, they're infected, but not with a virus conjured up in our lab. No, they've got parasites in them, waiting to fully gestate. That parasite will eventually burst out of its victim. A bit like the chest burster seen in Alien, but this time it's a skullbuster, though that's jumping ahead a bit too far for now. Everyone that Leon comes into contact with has been infected with the Las Plagas parasite for some time now. Because as we see with Leon and Ashley, it can't take over its host straight away. It needs time with its host. Osmund sadly used these parasites to take over the village and its inhabitants, the neighbouring castle, and the island. This all to advance his plans, which is essentially world domination. Los Illuminados began their takeover of the area around the turn of the millennium, slowly creeping in around the edges until those that resisted were outnumbered and were forced to take the parasite. Salvador even seduced Ramon Salazar, the 8th Castellan of the area. Sure, Salazar was doing this for power as well, but he wanted to make up for the sins of his family against the original Ganados. Now there are essentially 3 major types of Ganados: the villagers, the zealots/cultists who inhabit the castle, and the soldiers on the island, which are basically a private militia.
Vayan por detrás. Who are these people?
The villagers work with what they have, as they're just everyday folk. They wield pitchforks and torches, knives and well anything they can throw, and some of the imagery shown makes them look like nothing more than an angry mob. But thanks to Las Plagas, they are stronger and can take more than just a bullet to the face. Though with a major agriculture background, these guys don't really have heavy artillery, even if they can conjure up Molotovs and a few sticks of dynamite here and there. Their knowledge of the area and their sheer numbers is what makes them a real threat to Leon, and actually all other trespassers. The zealots and cultists are essentially the next level of Ganado. These aren't really made up of old people or women. These are the most devoted followers, which makes them more aggressive, and they can take more damage. Now with crossbows in play, the player's going to have to deal with ranged combat to a certain extent, something that was still kind of new to Resident Evil at the time. Armed mostly with flails and scythes, this section starts to feel really medieval, but more importantly these weapons hit harder, and the scythe can even be a one-shot kill weapon. These loyal followers also come equipped with wooden shields, which can really mix up an encounter, because you can't really rely on your pistol when they're out, but this is nothing the shotgun can't deal with. These guys also chant a lot, or is it mumbling or some sort of incantation? Regardless, it always made them feel a bit more scarier than the other Ganados. Oh, and eventually the Zealots get helmets, so you can't get headshots. Once getting to the island, the player's gonna have to deal with Sadler's private militia. An army of semi-coordinated soldiers that, quite honestly, share a lot in common with the Zealots. In terms of their weaponry anyway, they get stun rods, but no guns. And you can kind of see why this choice was made, as nobody wanted a shooter from Resident Evil, unless it's like some sort of spin-off light gun game or something like that. You've just got to take a look at Resident Evil 5 and see how hellish that is when the Magini starts shooting back. They do use RPGs and turrets from time to time, but thankfully these are only in scripted sections. But bar the lack of creepy chants and robes, they're pretty much the same as the cultists. As I've already said, I wasn't sold on ditching the zombies, but somewhere around 20 years ago the Ganados won me over. Did this game really come out over 20 years ago now? They were terrifying in a whole new way, and they really laid out new combat challenges, making the game feel more dynamic, making it feel like Resident Evil had truly evolved, even if it's not what we all wanted at first. Most of us came around. Well, most of us. If the Ganados were just zombies again, I don't think Resident Evil 4 would have been viewed as such a step up for the franchise, or video games in general.
Six years have passed since that horrendous incident.
6 years after the Raccoon City incident, Leon S. Kennedy has been drafted out to find the president's daughter. Little about Leon's life is actually explored in this game, but some of his backstory does get fleshed out later, like in the light gun game The Dark Side Chronicles, and the Netflix series Infinite Darkness. In both of these, the government do what they always do, which ended this rookie cop's career.
Let's go. Time to kick some ass.
Arriving at the village, it isn't long before the shit hits the fan, and from here Leon is constantly fighting for survival, as he's swarmed by the locals. Little does he know that in the shadows, an old acquaintance of his is working on her own operation, for an even shadowy figure. Acting as his guardian angel, the two don't get reacquainted until Leon makes it to the castle, but Ada is cagey as ever.
Long time no see.
The only other non-hostile in the area, apart from Ashley, or of course the merchant, is Luis.
Small world, eh?
By the time Salazar is in the mix, the plot is all but revealed. Osmund Sattler wants to infect the president's daughter, Ashley Graham, and send her back, all to basically infiltrate the government and form his own deep state within the deep state. It isn't a complicated story by any means, but it does advance so much for the overall franchise. We have returning characters, new ones involved, and the ground is even set for Resident Evil 5, thanks to the addition of separate ways. This was something new to Resident Evil, but at the same time almost a hard reset. We never see Umbrella fall, as Leon just explains a truncated version at the start of the game.
Soon its stock prices crashed, and for all intents and purposes, Umbrella was finished.
Resident Evil from here also starts to go global in a major way, expanding on the possibilities for future games. And yes, this wasn't the first Resident Evil game to leave the States, but it was the first one to make a major impact. It feels like media will go in any other direction now, but sometimes I want a cheesy plot, a bit like Independence Day.
I've been expecting you, my brethren.
No thanks, bro.
Having a real villain of the week vibe, Leon works his way through Sattler's lieutenants, and eventually cuts the head off the Cole. Personally, I've always loved this form of storytelling and gameplay for that matter, and there's a reason Capcom would return to this formula, as it just works, most of the time. The game also helped millions fall in love with Leon S. Kennedy, for what feels like a lifetime bond, because the man went from rookie cop to action hero badass in front of our very eyes.
Better try a new trick, cause that one's getting old.
He's full of quips, breaks out killer moves, and he's grown so much since we first saw him. Sure, Resident Evil 2 set the groundwork, but Resident Evil 4 went on to sell over 15 million copies, then another 10 million with the remake, which just goes to show, all you need is a simple story told well. And what I mean by cheese is, you're saving the president's daughter at the end of the day. It's nothing too complicated, until the story unfolds at least. With the rule of cool and solid gameplay, that's all you need to make something truly legendary.
I have only one very important question. You got a smoke?
Got gum.
Like with past Resident Evil games, and those yet to come, 4 is split into a few major areas, with there being some interconnectivity earlier on, but as the game progresses, everything gets a little bottlenecked as the player's about to come to the end. An early hallmark of the series was exploring one area, with the player unlocking doors and passageways to move things forward, or act as shortcuts. This isn't the case in Resident Evil 4 though, as the game split into chapters rather than being focused around areas, and the village kicks things off, with its muted tones and almost a sepia filter. I'm just wondering actually, is this where the piss filter era in video games started? Maybe it was. This was something that became so hated before it was faded out, but now it's really missed, as it feels like new games have rainbows vomiting all over them. But the piss filter here really makes it feel like you're stepping into another world, as Leon is a stranger in a strange land. Almost like he's going back in time to a fairy tale setting, that's actually being twisted within. The drive to the village has some tension about it, which is only heightened when one cop gets out for a piss.
It was right before I was to take on my duties of protecting the president's daughter when she was abducted. That's the ultimate reason I'm in this lonely and rural part of Europe.
It's freezing. So cold all of a sudden.
After being dropped off by the helpful duo, Leon is left to hoof it the rest of the way.
I'll go and have a look around.
Yeah, we'll stay and watch that car. Don't want to get any parking tickets.
Right. Parking tickets.
Good luck.
Which actually might be the only reason he makes it through the first day alive. Approaching the hunter's lodge on the outskirts, there seems to be someone home, but he's a bit of aloof. And he's not really being responsive at all.
Excuse me. Sir? I was wondering if you might recognize a girl in this photograph?
Leon attempts to talk to the guy, but instead he just lashes out. This means Leon has no choice but to defend himself.
Freeze! I said freeze!
As this is going on inside, a truck drives past and more people start to gather outside. On closer inspection, this house has some tales about it, that this guy maybe wasn't all there, because something dark is laying underneath. The villagers outside the lodge also have got to be dispatched, but not before this flashy exit. They all attack Leon, so it seems like this wasn't a one-off. Going back to check his ride, there's no turning back now. And were we still using bridges like this back in 2005? Or is this just Japanese people thinking this is what Europe is like? Here's also where Leon gets in touch with Hunnigan for the first time.
Leon, I hope you can hear me. I'm Ingrid Hunnigan. I'll be your support on this mission.
Loud and clear.
And this radio seems to have a strong resemblance to the codec from Metal Gear Solid. I wonder if it was borrowed. Hunnigan acts as Leon's handler and point of contact for the mission. She's not just here for the story though, as she fills in the player with much needed info throughout the game, and sometimes real basic information too. She's like verbal yellow painter points.
Leon, how you holding up?
Bad question, Hunnigan.
Sorry to hear that. I'm sending you a playing manual. Hope you find it useful.
I'll take a look at it, thanks.
And this also allows the player to see the ladies' man side of Leon, letting us know that he's grown up and he's not a boy anymore.
Leon, it's been 6 hours since our last transmission. I was starting to get worried.
Don't you mean lonely?
Well, not if you play the VR version, where it essentially censored all this out, which is incredibly fucking lame. And I can kind of see why it wouldn't return in the remake, because someone would think this is unprofessional or some sort of bullshit like that. But cutting this out really removes the human side of Leon. It's like when people put too many filters over pictures to remove all their imperfections. You just lose some of the character of what was once there. And it's kind of sterile as you remove aspects of, being a human.
Leon, I have some bad news.
I'd rather not hear it.
These days, a lot of games, movies and TV shows really feel like they've let the HR team into the writer's room. And this makes so many stories so fucking stale. Japanese media has mostly escaped being watered down like the West. But every now and then it feels like the shit we have to deal with over here is creeping over there. As the journey to the village continues, traps lace the path. Now I get bear traps because fuck bears, but tripwire bombs feel a bit excessive. Here is where some whimpering can be heard. As it turns out, a wolf has been caught in one of these traps. Now you could just ignore this and continue on to the village. But who the fuck does this? Look, I'm a cat person, but not even I can leave this guy behind. Honestly, I've not seen anyone not let this lad free. and I'd continue to do so, even if it didn't benefit Leon later. Sheds line the path before getting to the village, and they have something inside them, something I'm not sure if I should interact with or not, because there's no yellow to guide me. What do I do? I used to think the whole yellow paint thing was overblown, but Resident Evil in the RE Engine era is covered in this shit. Only in Requiem has it finally toned down just a bit. I just wish I could turn this shit off. There's also one last warning, that these guys mean business, and it doesn't matter if you're a man or woman. They'll show no mercy to either sex. Coming to the village, Leon decides to scope out the place before walking in, which is probably the best course of action after the reception he just had. And at this point I realise we've not seen the sky yet. It's almost the same shade as everything else, a kind of pissy brown. This really helps draw the player in, as if this is another world, harkening back to the sense that we're in a fairy tale location that's rotten on the inside. On the surface everything seems to be running fine. Well, even if this village looks like it's been frozen in time for the past 50 years, from when the game was set anyway, because as we explore this place, there's no electrical outlets, modcons, or signs this game takes place post Y2J. In fact, it isn't until the third major location that the player steps out of this illusion. Then looking closer, this isn't an ordinary fire. No, one of the local police officers is burning at the stake.
I'm sure you boys didn't just tag along so we could sing Kumbaya together at some Boy Scout bonfire.
Most people would want to turn back after seeing this, but Leon's been sent here to do a mission, so he's got to push forward. And what follows is one of the most memorable combat sequences in the entire series. Hell, maybe even in video games. As the music starts to swell, the locals notice the stranger in their presence, and they greet him in the only way they know how. They also seem to multiply, like really fast, crawling out of the woodwork like bugs. You know when you move a log off the floor after it's been there for a while, and a bunch of bugs just scurry away? Well, this time they're scurrying towards Leon, so he can't stay here for long. Naturally, most players will look for some kind of sanctuary, so heading to the house with the open door seems to be the best bet. Then this triggers a cutscene. Leon's wondering what the hell is going on, and who the hell these people are, as they seem to be organising the attack. Then he arrives, the Chainsaw Man.
Chainsaw.
Wearing a sack over his head, with just 2 holes to see out of, Dr. Salvador does not fuck around. And honestly, this bloke was the stuff of nightmares when I was younger. He takes a real beating before he even staggers, and getting him to fall to the ground is a real chore. So honestly, the shotgun found in the house is the only way to keep Leon alive, even if I'm sure players have done this with just a fucking knife. Another way he'll stay alive is by knocking down those ladders, like this was the Battle of Helm's Deep or something. Villagers still come from everywhere as the chainsaw revs up from a distance. Once Salvador is in play though, he's in ever-presence, and looms over the first part of this game like a spectre. This guy's also an instant kill if he gets close enough, which is a bold move because not even Nemesis was an instant kill. Jill would just shake off the damage and keep moving. If he's taken down, this can speed up the dinner bell, but if not, it'll be a scramble around the village until the villagers just stop.
La campana.
They go from a savage mob to sheep in a trance, like that, all thanks to that church bell. Dropping their weapons, Leon can't believe it.
Lord Saddler.
But of course he's still got an iconic one-liner ready in the chamber.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
And with that, we have the title card. After another quick chat with Hannigan, it'll be time to press on.
Leon, you need to get out of there.
And oh yeah, I found a gold egg during the battle, thanks to one of the fine ladies sauntering about. And this will be of Leon to the end of the game, I promise. Oh, and while I'm in the inventory again, I should probably note that the herbs are back, as you know, they're a mainstay of the series.
Leon here. Been out in this village for like an hour or some shit. Can't find a blunt to save my life. Oh shit. Didn't realize you guys were so chill.
Green herbs can be consumed alone, or combined for a greater effect, but really you should be mixing these with red herbs, and hopefully a yellow, to increase Leon's maximum health. This makes yellow herbs worth their weight in gold.
Smoking on that saddler pack, you know what the fuck to do. Gra gra.
Entering the next area, Ganados are still tending to the farm, so really word hasn't gotten about yet that Leon's walking around. This area is wider and has a little bit more verticality to it. This just means the Ganados are going to try and flank the player, so you gotta keep your eye out for that. This is also where the game introduces pseudo-collectibles. In a sense anyway, the blue medallions, only found in 2 sections, are well worth finding. even if you just sell the reward after. Also, as well as collecting money, treasure can be found throughout the game, with some requiring a few steps to get them. Oh, and Leon comes across his old wolf buddy again, before stumbling upon Resident Evil 6.
Tell me when I'm telling lies!
On the way to the homestead, Leon takes a page out of Dr. Jones's playbook, just to make sure he's paying attention. In this next area, it's clear the Ganados are aware of a trespasser, as they've got a little bit more firepower of their own, but thankfully these sticks of dynamite act as a target too. This is one of the more neglected parts of the village, as everything's overgrown here, and the buildings are going derelict. Leon's going to have to watch out for bear traps, as well as tripwires. It also pays to look up sometimes too. Once all the Ganados are dealt with, a banging can be heard from a distance. This is either a lead, or Leon's going to walk in on someone knocking boots. Getting to the source of the racket, thankfully it isn't the latter. Inside, a man falls out, who just happens to be a sharply dressed son of a bitch, and he doesn't want to kill Leon, so that's a nice change.
Little rough, don't you think? You're not like them?
Luis is one of the great secondary characters within Resident Evil. He's cocky, he's charming, and just a lovable rogue. He's also got brains, and you wouldn't expect to find him out here either, let alone tied up in a wardrobe. But I'm just so glad he's in this game. I really like Luis. Then just like that, the Undertaker shows up.
Perfect. The big cheese.
What?
Leon isn't Mr. WrestleMania sadly, so he can't pull off a switch of music.
Feeble humans, let us give you our power.
Whilst unconscious, Leon gets a free sample of the latest trend, the last Plagas parasite. And wait, is this Spanish Emperor Palpatine?
Soon, you will become unable to resist this intoxicating power.
Waking up after his defeat by the dead man, Leon and Luis are attached by the hip, so they've got time to get acquainted.
Crawl out of one hole and into another.
You want to tell me what's going on here?
Turns out Luis knows more than he's letting on.
Americano, see? Now what brings a bloke like you to this part of the world? Oh, hey, easy, whoever you are.
Name's Leon. Came here looking for this girl. Seen her?
What, are you supposed to be a cop or something? Nah, you don't look the type.
Maybe.
Okay, let me guess. She's the president's daughter?
That's too good for a guess. Want to start explaining?
Psychic powers.
After all that's happened in the intro, it's nice for things to slow down a bit though. But of course it can't stay like this for long, as a rogue Ganado is coming.
Used to be a cop myself. Only for a day though.
I thought I was bad.
Somehow I managed to get myself involved with the incident in Raccoon City on my first day in the force.
And wait a minute, Leon drops that he was in Raccoon City, and Luis has this to say.
I think I might have seen a sample of the virus in a lab at the department.
Like, what? The T-virus is in a random police station in Madrid. Why isn't this shit locked down? And what's up with this guy? Bad day at work, or is he seeking revenge on Leon?
Now!
Then in classic Resident Evil fashion, Luis uses this as a chance to slip. The biggest tragedy of this game is Leon no longer has his World War II bomber jacket, but before there's time to mourn this loss, in steps the merchant.
Over here, stranger.
Shame he's not got another jacket to sell though.
Got something that might interest you.
But at least he has a much needed sniper rifle. This is always one of my go-to weapons in this era of Resident Evil, especially as enemies love to be a tad too spongy at times, but before using this fine weapon, of course the inventory needs rearranging. Now in the Valley, this place is a sniper's wet dream, and I'm sure I say this in most of my videos, but I love the excuse to pop a few heads in video games. This weapon just makes short work of most Ganados, as their skulls pop like melons. But even after thinning out the herd, more come crawling out of who knows where, meaning a grenade comes in clutch, but these bastards make sure to return the favour. Luckily, the old faithful in video games can be found here too. Man, I love me a red barrel. Seriously, this is one video game trope that should never go away. Even though this is essentially more of the same. The Valley confrontation feels nothing like the village square or the farm, thanks to the simple shift of location and new objective. Resident Evil 4 continues to do this throughout the runtime, taking familiar pieces and shaking them about the board. After finding the necessary pieces to move on, the pace slows right down and the music dissipates, all in favour for more ominous winds that cut through the silence. Heading inside the sewer treatment plant, there's yet another welcoming committee. Also, this game kind of has a rudimentary cover system, which is only really necessary to avoid being blown up. Then this part turns into a shooting gallery. Oh, and take a look at this trick shot that totally wasn't done by accident. Now, I don't know if the game ever tells the player this, but Leon can shoot projectiles out of the air. He can also do a bit of fishing too. Entering the house ahead, here's the game's first true example of a puzzle, and these are a staple of the Resident Evil series by this point. But this one is a simple matter of moving a ball around to match a symbol. But at least Capcom were trying to keep the player engaged. And this is why I don't really have a puzzle section like I did in my past Resident Evil videos. If this game was made today though, it'd be covered in yellow paint and pop-up hints for sure. Or Leon would talk to himself and say, "Gotta match the symbol and move that ball." Oh, and he'd probably have a chatty companion that blurts out the fucking answer before you can even think about it. Then out of nowhere, it seems like Leon's about to take a chokeslam to hell, when Mendez decides to just play nice, for now.
You carry the same blood as us, it seems. Nevertheless, you're an outsider. Just remember, if you become unpleasant to our eyes, you'll face severe consequences.
But I'm pretty sure every Ganado attacks Leon on sight.
What? Same blood.
Now Leon knows something's up. Chapter 3 starts with another call from Hunnigan.
Leon, I've been able to get some new info that might help you.
She basically fills people in on stuff they might not be bothered to read. Then pushing his luck, it seems like Mendez has finally had enough. When someone in a red dress just happens to be watching out for Leon. And I wonder who that woman in the red dress was. Now, the house that Mendez lives in is pretty simple, but it does show that some people do live normally. From time to time anyway. Maybe it's down to the fact that he has a different parasite in him, so he still retains a lot of who he once was. There's even a lad taking a piss, which always makes me jump. And there's an egg in the oven. Why is there an egg in the oven? Leaving this place, look who's back. Back again. Salvador's back. Fuck my life. This is a rough point to face off against him too. Sure, the player's got a wider artillery now, but remember, this guy's a one-hit kill enemy, so finishing him off with the knife might be a bit cocky. Coming to the village square, this is about it for backtracking, as Resident Evil 4 is mostly a linear game. It's split into parts like the old games, but you don't really run around them as much, you just go forward. As I've said, a lot of games would follow this formula after, until the graphical fidelity arms race became too expensive, and now the entire industry is struggling to keep up. And there's a certain game that's most probably to blame for this, but I'll cover that eventually.
Is this everything you were hoping for?
Coming back to this area isn't just a smart use of assets, but it adds a sense that Leon is lost and searching through this place, and for the time making this place feel like one cohesive location, even though a lot is hidden behind loads. This is something that Capcom will go on to perfect once they got their act together with Resident Evil 7 and beyond. Then after entering the town hall, I need to give the save room music a shout out. Hell, pretty much every save theme needs a shout out in Resident Evil. As I write this script, I've got a compilation of them playing in the background. And then I've got to ask, is this underground passage really the only way to the church?
Got something that might interest you.
Wait a minute, how does the merchant get down here? It's never explained, but sometimes it's fun to have a little mystery. As for the treasure found along the way, this can be sold to the merchant, individually or sometimes combined, to increase the value.
I'll buy it at a high price. Thank you.
Coming up to the church, there'll be more Ganados and blue medallions to dispatch, as well as a few clues in the cemetery. Unfortunately, this place is locked down tight, so Hunnigan's got to make sure the player isn't a total idiot.
Hunnigan, it's Leon. The door's locked. I can't get in.
Didn't they teach you how to pick locks at the academy?
Yeah. There's some sort of indentation, like something might fit inside.
Well, there's no use standing around. Leon, you have to find some way or something to get inside.
Behind the church is a dial puzzle, with family insignias around it. This puzzle is focused around learning patterns, and really using your memory, as all the clues can be found in the cemetery. As for the dial itself, it can only be turned clockwise, in increments of 3 or 4. It can only be turned cockwise. Cockwise. So the way this one's set up, it feels impossible to brute force. It isn't necessary for progression, but the cat's eye can slot into the beer stein to increase its value. Arriving at the quarry, I should mention this game includes some other smaller animals. They're pretty inconsequential to the overall game, but they can drop rewards. Breaking wooden boxes isn't always straightforward, as sometimes there'll be a pesky snake hiding inside. Was this a Metal Gear Solid reference? I like to think so. They take a bit of health off Leon, but nothing too crazy. At least they sometimes drop eggs. Crows can be found throughout, but there's a large group of them hanging out in the quarry, and I always save a grenade for this point. As for the quarry, this place seems rather big to have nothing going on in it. Anyway, just before getting to the swamp, turns out the Ganados are fans of Crash Bandicoot, as they send another boulder Leon's way. The swamp is another unique combat area. It's got tripwires and plenty of Ganados to deal with, though I can't help but think this area is missing a step. As much as I personally hate having a character's movement restricted, the water doesn't slow Leon down at all, and it feels like it really should. And I don't really know what's stopping the player just running through this area, because I think you can just run to the end and that's it. There's no key. More Ganados come from behind, but that just means I get to pop off a few more heads. I get the tripwires are here to slow the player down, but it's always fun to see a Ganado walk into them. Now at the lake, we find out what happened to the other police officer, which really sets things up for the game's first boss fight.
Vámonos. Okay. Ándale.
And this one is going to be unlike any other boss fight in Resident Evil so far, because it isn't about shooting the weak spot or running around a combat area to avoid attacks. As well, once Leon gets to open water, he loses control of his boat. Del Lago is one of the earlier parasite experiments from Los Illuminados, and it's one of the more primitive Plaga that we come across in this game, with its original host being a salamander. The Plaga increased its size tenfold. After being sealed off in the lake, it now serves as a form of waste disposal, and a handy means to get rid of evidence. Just like you shouldn't trust pig farmers, don't trust anyone who's got a Del Lago hanging about.
They will go through a body that weighs 200 pounds in about 8 minutes. Hence the expression, as greedy as a pig.
Getting caught on the anchor of Leon's boat, it pulls him around the lake, meaning the player's gonna have to avoid floating debris on the surface. If not, this means Del Lago is gonna have 2 meals in one day. While being pulled around, the player's gonna have to land harpoons in the back of Del Lago. This causes the beast to go underwater and come back for an attack, though landing a harpoon in his mouth will counter this. This is a fun encounter to be honest, but I can't help but think that Leon's boat would be pulled underneath straight away. After enough harpoons have been landed, Del Lago is gonna sink into the abyss, but if you're not fast on a button bashing, Leon's gonna follow suit. Getting ashore, Leon coughs up blood. The first sight the parasite within him is starting to hatch, though for now, he isn't aware that a Plaga is using them as a host. This all proving too much for Leon. He finally passes out. Waking up after some time, it's made clear to the player just what's going on. Though thankfully for Leon, this was just a dream. Then even after it all, he's still on point with the one-liners.
Leon, it's been 6 hours since our last transmission. I was starting to get worried.
Don't you mean lonely?
Ooh. And after 6 hours, the sun's gone down. As night creeps into the surrounding area, there's new forms of danger. As our lone Ganado approaches, his head bursts open, revealing what's been manifesting underneath. This is the Scythe variety of parasite, and it's the most common form of the Plaga transformation. At first, it just looks like a mess of tentacles, or bad cable management. These things are slow for the most part, but they're fucking deadly. Just one attack can take off a lot of health from Leon, so you can't mess about with these guys when they spawn, or at least keep your distance. From here, Headbursters will spawn dynamically, as Resident Evil 4 has a dynamic difficulty system, all running under the hood, ensuring the player isn't having too much of an easy time, or in some cases hard times too. Essentially, if you're running low or have plenty of ammo and heals, the dynamic difficulty will tweak the drops, whether that be from barrels, boxes or Ganados. As for the parasites themselves, I always remember a rumour going around where you could kill Ganados in a certain way to stop them spawning. This just isn't the case though, it's more playground rumours. They're going to pop up whenever they want. Some of these are scripted, but it really comes down to how well you're playing. They take a lot more to put down, which causes them to be real bullet sponges, especially as the game goes on. Though if you pay attention to what the parasites don't like, there's a massive clue here. Flashbang grenades are their kryptonite. These grenades will kill any and all in the blast radius, which if I'm honest makes good use of flashbang grenades. I say this because over my past 20 years of playing games, you don't really see players make much use of these things. A lot of the time they're thrown carelessly or discarded, and in a game like this people just hoard them to sell. However, in Resident Evil 4 there's sometimes the difference between life and death, especially later on when there are a bunch of parasite based enemies. Skipping ahead, the other two former parasites are Jaw and Spider. Jaws are by far the most toughest and dangerous to deal with. They're basically giant mouths that burst out the neck, and if you get too close, this is an instant kill for Leon, as it bites its whole head off. Once entering the castle, you should hang on to your flashbang grenades for these. The spiders aren't as dangerous, they're just more of a nuisance, and they're pretty simple to deal with in the original version of Resident Evil 4. They can detach from their host and scurry around all over the place, but yeah, it really doesn't take much to put these down. We still need the missing piece to get in the church, so that means navigating the waterfall section, which honestly looks like something out of Mousetrap. Dropping crates into the water is all that really needs to be done. That's so you can open up the waterfall and get past, but I've got to say the stock sound effect they use for this is just comical. Pulling a lever to open up a path, this then becomes a sniper's paradise, as Ganados almost line up for headshots. And the rest jumping over can just be knocked into the water like that. Hunnigan of course will be on call to remind us the point of the game so far. You know, for those that might have just forgot.
Wonderful, Leon. Head back to the church. Ashley's safety is our immediate priority.
This brings Leon back to the merchant hideout, which is located between the quarry and swamp. Here's where I cashed in all those blue medallions for the Punisher handgun.
Got some rare things on sale, stranger.
A fine replacement for the standard one, but soon it's going to be replaced by my one true love. Speaking of weapons, I also bought the TMP.
Thank you.
Which is the game's only real automatic weapon. It isn't the strongest thing, as it's essentially an Uzi, but it can be improved and the stock is essential. Then it's almost a solid MP5 stand-in. It works well for fast enemies and helps clear a crowd, or at least stun some of them. And with the church around the corner, it means it's time for a little backtracking, when of course the Quarry just wasn't here for show. I've got to ask, did the devs watch Lord of the Rings back in the day, and just decide they wanted a cave trial in their game?
Rápido! 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 ¡Carra! ¡Usa los músculos! ¡Rápido! ¡Apúrense! ¡Por aquí! ¡Rápido! ¡Rápido! ¡Por aquí! ¡Por aquí! ¡Ay! ¡Se vuelve loco! ¡Mierda!
Because come on, this is a cave troll. It's a great stand-in, but it's a cave troll. It's got an awesome entrance too, and not even the Ganados are safe. Created by Los Illuminados to do a bunch of heavy lifting, El Gigante has some serious muscle for the coal, but they eventually become too difficult to control, as seen in the introduction, so instead the remaining bioweapons were locked away until needed. So it's a bit more savage than a cave troll, but come on, still, cave troll. At first glance you wonder how Leon can take on such a beast, but if you put enough lead into its face, a parasite's going to burst out of its back. Then because Leon, he's got to get up close and personal with his knife. Not long after this, the next phase of the fight will be triggered, well unless the person was a monster. In drops the wolf with his own epic entrance.
Hey, it's that dog.
Almost like it's the main event of WrestleMania and the final boss needs seeing to. Now with El Gigante distracted, this fight becomes significantly easier, even if it does pull trees out of the ground for weapons, and make sure there's nowhere to hide. If you get lucky, Leon can run through El Gigante's legs, but sometimes you can get caught out by this. Defeating it, El Gigante becomes a permanent centerpiece to the quarry. All thanks to the help of the wolf, but this soon changes as Leon gets back to the church. Because of course, this game needs its own version of the zombie dog. This is part of Resident Evil's DNA at this point, but fuck that one in the L-shaped hallway. These aren't infected by the T-virus however, as these mutts have the Plaga inside them, and it's bursting out their mouth. Thankfully the TMP makes short work of them. Finally in the church, it's time for another puzzle. And this one is made up of 3 coloured lights, red, green and blue. Anyone who ever got too close to a CRT TV back in the day would see these all over the place. Now you can brute force this one eventually, but the idea is neat. Anyone who's ever mixed colours before knows what these lights are going to do, because if you spin them around, they make the corresponding colour to what they would in real life. But if you can't be bothered with that, there's always the shapes to go off. After learning how to mix colours, Leon finally finds Ashley.
Ashley!
Don't come!
And she's not much more than a frightened kid, or at least I thought so back in the day, but apparently she's 20?
Get away!
Calm down. Everything's going to be just fine. My name's Leon. I'm under the President's order to rescue you.
What? My father?
That's right. And I have to get you out of here. Now come with me.
Hunnigan then chimes in because it looks like Leon might be home free soon. Then the Dark Lord of the Sith shows up, but in a fancy purple robe this time.
I'll take the girl.
Who are you?
If you must know, my name is Osmund Sadler, the master of this fine religious community.
Leon must have stirred up a hornet's nest, because it's quite rare for Sadler to come down to the village these days. A bit like an insect hive mind. Not magic, honest, because magic just isn't in Resident Evil. Playing this game again, I'm noticing how many themes of the time were snuck into this game, but it never got super cringy. Then here is where the big plan is revealed.
We kidnap the president's daughter in order to give her our power, and then send her back.
No.
As Ashley is also infected with the parasite.
Leon, I think they shot something in my neck.
As cheesy as it might come across, this could actually work in 2005. Circumventing the security, Sadler would eventually control the most powerful man in the Western world. And sorry, what the hell is that chandelier doing right now? Going back to my recorded gameplay, I always love spotting glitches like this. It's a fun game in itself. God, Sadler holding a collection plate here would have been perfect.
But before that, I thought I might bargain with the president for some donation. Believe it or not, it takes quite a lot of money to keep this church up and running.
Sweet Jesus. Derek! I'm putting it in!
Sadler then continues the classic villain trope by explaining his plan away.
When the eggs hatch, you will become my puppets. Involuntarily, you'll do as I say. I'll have total control over your minds. Don't you think this is a revolutionary way to promulgate one's faith?
but that's not going to stop Leon and his one-liners.
Sounds more like an alien invasion if you ask me.
This cutscene totally lies to the player though, as Ashley would never make that fall, as Ashley is never this nimble again.
You okay?
Leon, what's gonna happen to us?
Don't worry. We got into this mess, we can get out of it.
Now, Resident Evil 4 is a masterpiece, there's no question about it, but that doesn't mean it's perfect. Nothing is, but this game gets pretty damn close, and I bet this setup sounds like I'm gonna shit all over Ashley, her voice actress and mechanics. But no, not yet. What I will say is, why after coming all the way down here, did Salah not bother, chase after Ashley? She's kind of the key to his plan of world domination. I only mention this because it's glaringly obvious 20 years later, but this is really just a nitpick. Leaving the church storeroom, there's an entire welcoming committee waiting for Leon and Ashley. But this mob is actually more imposing in the cutscene than anything else, as the cutscenes were always able to show more NPCs. And yes, Ashley is here now, but she really doesn't get in the way, like the internet would lead you to believe. Back in a previous life I made a mention of how annoying she could be, but honestly she's not all that bad. It's become a case of Chinese whispers, to be honest. Here she genuinely stays out of the way, but when you reach the castle, things do get a little bit more spicy. Well, just a bit. But I'm going to go as far as saying that escorting Ashley just isn't that bad, and everyone really is overhyping this. But all is well now as the merchant has new stock, so finally I'm reunited with my beloved Red 9.
Ah, a choice of an avid gun collector. It's a nice gun, stranger.
Nice.
But when I first played this game, I simply used this gun because of the aesthetics, but genuinely I've used all these weapons countless times over the years. And I've just got to say, Red 9 is the handgun for me. It boasts more power than many other handguns, but that comes with a limited rate of fire. Though this isn't really a problem for my playstyle. There's no one way to play Resident Evil 4, but I'm a dedicated Red 9 man. Fully upgraded, it's an elegant weapon for a more civilized age.
Thank you.
Oh, and the stock is essential too. Leaving the town hall, the village square has such a different vibe now, which really is achieved with a few simple tricks. Switch up the colour grade, darken the whole place a bit, and put a layer of rain over the top. Then put some creepy music in there for good measure. I say this is simple, but it's also brilliant art and environment design. It's also another example of Capcom being efficient with the resources it has, when it comes to Resident Evil anyway. Though saying this, the series would spiral out a bit very soon. I also love how Leon is lit here, as if he's silhouetted and somehow lit from behind. It's totally unrealistic, but you don't always need to go for the natural look. There's been a trend in all media to make things look as realistic as possible, whether that be in video games or film and TV. I don't know man, I used to be on this train until the PS4 generation, or the end of it anyway. Because after The Last of Us, games just started feeling samey, and varied art designs went out the window in the AAA space. They all just got a little boring. Ganados at night also feel more dangerous, and should be a band name to be fair. Now as the game progresses they do get tougher, but there's something about those glowing red eyes that's just unsettling. They also carry torches too, and if they get the chance, they're going to try and blow fire at Leon. But if they're shot they cover themselves in flames. Losers. This is just one more thing to worry about. The farm is basically the same as before, but with more nocturnal villagers to fight. What's also handy here is Leon can order Ashley into a box. Hide! Basically getting her out of the way and eliminating the chance of her being captured. So far so good in the early stages. So now with a little boost from Leon, both can get to the extraction point, and the day is saved. Right? Well, the merchant is here, so is that a good sign? Then Hunnigan calls with some bad news.
I'd rather not hear it.
Well, I'm afraid I have to tell you anyway. We've lost contact with the chopper. Someone must have shot it down, though we can't determine who.
Then it seems like the whole fucking village has turned out for this party at the abandoned cabin.
What are we gonna do, Leon?
Hate to say it, but we're sandwiched all right. Quick, in that cabin!
Though it turns out this place isn't quite abandoned after all, as Luis is here just chilling, and continuing to be cool as fuck.
Leon! Small world, eh? Well, I see that the president's equipped his daughter with ballistics too.
How rude!
Now looking back at this, the one-liner is funny as hell, but I really had to double check Ashley's age. I don't know man, apparently she's 20, even though she comes across as 14 or 15, and you just gotta love how Luis shrugs this off in such a smooth way.
Oh, excuse me, Your Highness. Perhaps the young lady might want to introduce herself first before asking someone his name.
Her name's Ashley Graham, the president's daughter.
Is she... well, you know.
Don't worry, she's cool.
Then just like that, the game remembers there's a mob of Ganados just waiting outside. Were they all waiting for their cue, or just taking their sweet ass time?
Okay, it's game time.
This set piece, level, moment, or whatever you want to call it, man, it's just excellent. The cabin defense is so simple, but at the same time it doesn't need a bunch of bells and whistles to be effective, because Resident Evil 4 is already a solid game, so defending an area is always fun, and can be quite stressful. I've always been a fan of last stands in media, even though this technically isn't one, but the whole siege mindset of this encounter just comes together. From the scramble to block windows of bookcases, why are there so many of these about, to managing the flow of Ganados that eventually break in. But as it all builds to this, there's just a level of tension in the air as the windows start banging all over the place. Kind of like the Fellowship waiting for goblins to burst in. Except these guys don't have a cave troll.
They have a cave troll.
The Ganados don't rush things, but if you don't have your shit together, they're gonna flood downstairs in no time. This can become a clusterfuck in so many ways, from being grabbed constantly, taking hits from someone throwing a weapon, or parasites bursting out for fun. And the thing is, you want these bastards to get in after a while, because you're gonna want the pesetas and ammo they drop, as you can't go outside once this kicks off. Funny thing is, after all these years, the Ganados overwhelmed me on my first try, with the parasite swiping Leon as I was about to go upstairs. So second go around, the shotgun comes out sooner. With that in hand, I wonder if Dr. Salvador was ever meant to be part of this encounter. Then again, that might have been a little too hardcore. Eventually, you just need to know when to quit, and head upstairs of Luis. And I've got to ask, why does the in-game model of Luis have a 5 o'clock shadow? But in the cutscene he doesn't. Has this always been the case and I just never noticed it till now? You think being upstairs would be simpler to defend, but it really isn't actually, because this is not 300. The Ganados don't all cram upstairs one by one. No, they've got ladders, so this is more the Battle of Helm's Deep. Are we sure the devs weren't watching Lord of the Rings when making this game? Because Los Illuminados take a leaf out the Isengard playbook.
I'm on 17!
So if you don't kick these down, the situation becomes unbearable to handle. Now with ladders surrounding the cabin, and villagers swarming up the stairs, it feels like the whole village is about to swallow this place. As you can never really get a good rhythm in, because soon as you knock down those ladders, a bunch of Ganados will run up the stairs. It's chaos, but it's pure fun. Then when it all seems like it's over, they just give up. Then in classic Resident Evil fashion, Luis just walks out without saying much.
Looks like they're backing off.
So, what do we do now?
The bridge I crossed to get here's out, so I guess we have no choice but to keep moving.
I forgot something. You guys go on ahead.
Luis.
Then as the next chapter starts, it's like nobody was ever here. Apart from the merchant, he's always out to make a quick buck.
Welcome!
Here's where the devs decided to give the player a bit of a choice. Now I've gone on record to say I'm not the biggest fan of choices in games. Just look at Gears 5. It'd be a decade or more before we get a resolution to that choice, and that's if we ever get a resolution at this point. But I will contradict myself because sometimes I do want to make a choice. Just look at the end of The Last of Us Part 2 for example. You can't make a choice there, but I would've. At least the devs had some sort of vision on canon. Hell, just look at the Mass Effect trilogy. Hardly anyone went for a full Renegade playthrough, so this is a long way of me saying, I never choose the El Gigante path. If this was a game show, I'd never go through door number 2. But it's the left one for me, as this offers new challenges, or at least new characters. Well, it's kind of similar, but it's new in a sense, and overall it's just more appealing for me. I don't know, some people might enjoy the El Gigante fight, but it just doesn't do it for me. But this is the most battle arena kind setup in this game, and sure at first it might just seem like another Ganado fight, but thankfully you can shove Ashley in the bin again. This is just the first phase, as the second one takes over, and we've got some new enemies. Because former WWE Divas champions join the party, and much like Dr. Salvador, these two are a one-hit kill deal. And also like Salvador, these two weren't infected by normal means. They weren't just given a normal Plaga egg. Instead, they were infected directly into their bloodstream. and that was pumped into their head. So in law reason, that's why Dr. Salvador is one tough bastard, and also why he wears a sack on his head. This is also why the Bella sisters, I will never not find that name funny, have bandages covering their faces, whereas the sisters feel weaker than Dr. Salvador, but they more than certainly make up for it with their berserker nature. It almost comes across like they don't feel pain as they take damage. Instead, they just channel this into another attack, and 2 chainsaws are just deadlier than 1. But this is Leon S. Kennedy we're talking about, so he pulls through. So just another shit ton of Ganados to deal with before getting out of here, because there's always a shit ton of Ganados at this point, and it can get a little touch and go here, I won't lie. Maybe I should have gone for El Gigante. With that, Leon and Ashley have finally made it to the outskirts, and it's pretty empty out here. With only the wind blowing by, and of course, the merchants here to greet us. You get a real sense that this might almost be it. But first, we've got to take a gondola ride to a shed. And it really feels like this bit comes at such a weird moment in the game. Almost like padding, but is it really padding when it's good? Because any excuse to get the sniper out, I'm always game. Even if the pacing feels off a bit. Oh, and if you want off to the side, you can go down the sacrificial cave. I'm actually surprised there wasn't more of these in the game. One thing I love about this section is you can see the castle off in the distance, looming over the landscape that is controlled for generations now, because apparently people in castles still control people in Europe. Hell, not even our own monarchy has any real power. Sure, I think they can dissolve the government like Emperor Palpatine, but that's about it. Wrapping things up, Leon's gonna have to confront a familiar face one more time.
You better stay outside. Ashley, go hide.
Yeah.
Because Mendez literally has the key out of here. He's also got a mean chokeslam on him. But Leon recovers the only way he knows how, with a quip and a red barrel.
Hasta luego.
The only thing this does is burn away Mendez's trench coat and really pisses him off. The village chief isn't playing around anymore, as he mutates thanks to his parasite. Mendez might be a monster now, but he's a tragic figure. So are all the villagers really. They didn't want to be part of this, they were just roped into this by Salazar and Sadler. But this was all a trick, so he could control them like puppets. Mendez is the only one that showed any sort of humanity in the village, but now there's no reasoning with him, as this is an inferno match to the death. And sorry, I've got to take a moment to appreciate this sick design, as with that ribcage it looks more like a centipede now. This looks less like Mendez as the parasite has taken over, and now with large mandibles protruding from his back. This fight is one of 2 stages, with Mendez seeming super slow in the first stage. He can almost feel like a pushover. You can easily juke around him and just shoot from afar, but this doesn't last long though, as he splits in 2. Now legless, Mendez is far more dangerous. Like many people on a night out, he's faster and there's more opportunities for an insta-kill attack. His reach is also insane here too. It feels like there's no escaping him, even when you climb the rafters. Eventually though, he'll succumb to red barrels and some buckshot. Now with his false eye, yes, that's how we're escaping the village. This is surely the home stretch, right? You've also got to love the continued commitment to the bit, with devs finding weird ways to access their next location. Through the gate, this doesn't mean the Ganados are going to give up yet. And after all this time, they finally use something with an engine. Now I say this, I realise a chainsaw has an engine, but you know what I mean. Even taking this thing out, more are going to come from behind, as Leon and Ashley rush to the castle.
You take that one.
Okay.
Ready? Come on.
Yeah.
Now in the castle, this is basically the last we see of the villagers, though there are going to be more enemies to deal with in the Deepin Wall. As the second major area of Resident Evil 4, the player's going to spend a bunch of time here, and I think it might be even more time than you spend in the village. If not, it's very close. This place dates back to the medieval era. With its dark themes, it's in stark contrast to every other location in this game. This sprawling location introduces more complex puzzles, and ramps up the need to defend Ashley. By now the enemy isn't just minding their own business, they're ready for Leon and looking for him. They feel more organised now with more robust gear. Personally, the early stages of the village are my favourite part of this game. But in certain sections, the castle makes the village feel like a tutorial. There's so much variety to be had here, from the brutal castle architecture to the posh ornate halls. But to start with, there's a bunch of catapults to greet Mr. Kennedy.
Ahí está. Mátalo.
That and these castle Ganados love to chant to themselves. These are die-hard followers of Los Illuminados, and with their close proximity to the Zealot leader, it's almost like he's egging them on. Even after popping a few heads, they still manage to get a lucky shot on Leon. And funnily enough, this triggers a reaction from Ashley that only certain players would really receive. You know, the ones that love a good upskirt shot. But here, this just wasn't warranted, goddammit. It was a total accident. Navigating the first section is a balance of aggression and caution, because ruthless aggression will get you nowhere. You never know, a stray flaming boulder might land on Ashley's head, and you can't leave her behind because the Ganados are going to try and snatch her. This is where the escort mission loop of Resident Evil 4 really kicks off, and where all the internet and player hate comes from, really. With one room especially causing many people trouble, Ashley will either stick close to Leon or wait for an order. The kick here is though, if Ganados grab her and get to the nearest door with a load, that's basically game over.
Leon! Leon!
Killing the carrier is the only course of action, but just be sure you don't shoot Ashley in the process, because she can die really fast.
Leon!
With the help of a cannon, this is one way of knocking on a door. Then after this section, I finally get my beloved riot gun. Now there's always been a debate of which shotgun is better in Resident Evil 4. The riot gun is the best at its base, but it is slightly outmatched when all are fully upgraded, as the striker is more powerful, so it turns a lot of Plaga into red mist, but it doesn't have the range of the riot gun, which can also pop Plaga heads wide open. Then of course there's hipster players out there that love the regular shotgun, but each to their own. Getting deeper into the castle, Hunnigan checks in, but then just like that, she's cut off.
I need you to...
What? Repeat, Hunnigan. Great. Just my luck.
The barracks, also known as the sword room, has its own unique challenge, as hooded Ganados flood the room, leaving little space to maneuver. This makes the shotgun an essential weapon. It's not only a crowd pleaser, but it saves the player from parasite headbursters, as the jaw Plaga now becomes a regular feature of the game, and in a small space like this, they're bloody deadly. Because you know, you can get grabbed by one Ganado and the other one just chomps your head off. The rattling of the chained weapons are a dead giveaway for where they are, but the mace on the other end is more than capable of caving in Leon's head. And there's a slight puzzle to be solved here, but really it's just shifting a few swords about. Escaping that area in one piece, Luis shows up again.
Leon!
Louis.
I've got something for you guys.
But yeah, of course he's lost the drug.
What? Oh shit! I must have dropped it when I was running away from them.
I get the devs wanting to include him a bit more before the events that take place later, but really, could they not have come up with something better?
Damn it! The eggs have hatched. We don't have much time.
What are you talking about?
I have to go back and get it.
Let me come with you.
No, you stay here with Leon. He is better with the ladies, I'm sure.
Why are you...
It makes me feel better. Let's just leave it at that.
This little guy always reminds me of that one scene on the Death Star. Thankfully there's a red barrel to help. Then shield guys into the mix, but thanks to the riot shotgun, they don't put up much of a fight, but they will put up a fight against pistols. Entering the audience hall, Ramon Salazar makes his entrance.
I was starting to wonder when you might notice us.
Who are you?
Me llamo Ramon Salazar, the 8th Castellan of this magnificent architecture.
But Leon's not bothered by this little Napoleon-looking bastard.
No thanks, bro.
Even with the two heavies either side. As for Ramon Salazar, he was approached by Osmund Sadler and essentially seduced by the promise of power. His relatives almost destroyed the cult back in the day and built this very castle over their ruins, sealing the parasites away deep below. This was meant to be the end of Los Illuminados, but Sadler didn't give up. After getting the villagers to excavate the parasites, they were all essentially mummified, but spores still remained in the ruins. And after kicking up all that dirt and dust, the villagers inhaled these spores. These would eventually grow into the parasites that control them to this day. This led to Sadler and his minions creating a fresh batch of Plaga eggs, all in time for Easter, and we all know by now his plans were to use this Plaga to take over the world. And for all his service in this, whilst betraying his family name, Salazar was gifted a dominant parasite. Mendez also had a version of this, which all but makes them immune to Sadler's mind control, turning them into lieutenants in this case. But as we've already seen with Mendez, they can become highly volatile and transform at a moment's notice.
I suggest you surrender yourself and simply become our hostage. Or Mr. Scott, you can give us the girl because you're not worth a penny, I'm afraid. You can die.
I'm never turning into one of them. Never.
Got that right. We'll find a cure.
Salazar isn't going to make things easy for Leon though, as there will be 3 pieces that need to be gathered to unlock the Chimera door. This won't be the only obstacle in Leon's way either, as there are some flaming horses blocking his path, and as it happens, the only means to turn this off is in the prison of all places. In the prison, an odd figure is chained up, or so it seems. The Garrador, which basically translates to the claw in Spanish, is a hyper-aggressive form of Plaga-infected host. So much so that they have to have their eyes sewn shut, as they can't be controlled any other way. These mini-bosses show up a few times around the game, with each scenario being a little different. The prison fight is essentially a tutorial. Even though this thing packs a punch, think of a ball seeing red, crossed with Wolverine from the X-Men. I mean, just look at all those claws, and then the sound effects when they retract. Walking slowly around this boss will be key to taking out the parasite on its back. This is its only weak spot, as the Garrador doesn't really feel pain anywhere else. Thankfully, there are some handy bells around the room that will attract this gladiator-style Ganado. This should give you enough time to get a few cheeky pot shots off on the weak spot, and with the power of the Red 9, this bastard goes down fairly quickly. It's quite interesting to go back and look at the structure of this in the older games, because one of the most challenging rooms in the entire game is up next, and just after a mini-boss of all things.
Follow me.
Waterfall is a notorious 2-stage room that pushes players to their limit. Yes, it's a wide open space, but thanks to the bloody water about, there isn't much room to maneuver around. At first, this room is essentially 3 lanes. 2 shield blokes will come straight at you head on, with some other buggers going around the flank. And don't be an idiot like me, make sure you don't use grenades too close to Ashley. Now I think this room is the main source of the Ashley hate in Resident Evil 4, because the village is far more chill than the castle. And well, spoilers, but she's out the picture pretty soon. Not long after this actually. Maybe people just hate the voice actor line delivery, and as I keep saying, it makes her sound much younger than 20, but it's the stuff of memes now. When I see a cosplayer put Ashley in pathetic situations, I can't help but laugh.
Leon! Help!
But in the Waterfall, it's punishing looking after her, especially as it's kind of round-based. You kill a few zealots, but there always seems to be more. And when they grab her in this situation, you don't really have time to go for a kill shot. Sometimes you gotta pop a cap in their leg and then run for it. Once they start grouping up, shield Ganados and jaw parasites become much harder to manage. And these really change the dynamic of Resident Evil 4. Because thus far you've been wanting to get up close and personal. But that just doesn't work for the shield guys, and especially not the jaw parasites. Here it's all about sticking and moving. There comes a point when blowing any head off is just dangerous. And then sometimes you gotta frantically reload to stop Leon's head being chopped off. Getting to the next stage, Waterfall makes Leon and Ashley split up, as Ashley needs to get up high and turn 2 cranks. Only problem being, zealots are up there too. Now Leon's gotta watch out for Ashley, and hold off the ones coming after him. The only saving grace here being, I get to pull out the sniper again, so I don't mind this part that much, as long as I've got sniper ammo to deal with these guys. Once the last crank has been turned, most players will always remember their time with Waterfall. Then as promised, Leon and Ashley get split up. and really in such a convoluted way.
You alright?
I'm fine! Leave me alone!
Ashley, wait!
How did anyone plan for this? Not only does Ashley narrowly avoid being skewered, but then she just happens to lean on the right spot of the wall to be grabbed.
Ashley!
What's going on?
Don't worry, Ashley. I'm coming for you.
And I know Leon means well, but how does Ashley even hear this? After an extended absence, it looks like Hardigan is back, when we get a surprise call from the little man himself.
Salazar, how'd you...
We've jacked the line. We didn't want you telling everyone any unnecessary information.
And I like that Salazar can just jack into the call as he puts it. This means we've got an excuse for the antagonist to, well, antagonize the protagonist. It also shows there's been a technology upgrade since the village.
Oh yes, I let our miserable insects out for some exercise down in the sewer.
Thanks. That should keep me company, 'cause boredom kills me.
I look forward to our next encounter. In another life.
Salazar wasn't lying about his bugs either, as the sewers really slowed the game down after several encounters. This is much needed, but at the same time, this area really scared the shit out of me back in the day. Look, I love almost everything horror, but back in the day I was a bit of a wimp. Now films don't really scare me at all, and not many games either. I think it's because this section is so quiet though, and you can hear those bug-looking fucks scurry around. But thanks to them having adaptive camouflage like the fucking Predator, they get up close quick. They also move about like xenomorphs, so is this the crossover we all deserved? Disturbingly enough, these aren't bugs. No, they were once human, but Los Illuminados pushed the Plaga to new levels with the Novistador. The music that kicks in also goes a long way to set the mood. Coming from the early days of Resident Evil on the PS1, the series has come light years in that department. From the save room music to battle tracks, this game's soundtrack perfectly complements what's on screen. The dungeon is a real test of the player when facing these bug fucks, because the Novistadors don't mess around, as they come at Leon from every direction. Listening in and squinting your eyes at the screen are key to surviving this. And now I say that, did anyone's parents used to say your eyes will go square if you watch the TV for too long? Because my mum did all the time, and now people only ever look at screens. 90s parents or something else. Do I just try and hold up in this cell here though? Am I glad every time this section is over? You bet. Come on, what the hell is even this next room? Its placement on the map makes no sense, and it's so random. But this won't be the last time the castle pulls this type of shit. Then looping around, it seems like a bunch of squatters are hanging out in the hall, and there's only one correct way to deal with these cultist fucks. Of course they try and run away, but I just love how this one guy shuts the rest out. What I don't love is this jaw parasite. What I do love is the treasure they drop though, because it means I can afford the last gun I need for Leon's arsenal, the semi-automatic rifle, complete with scope, of course.
Thank you.
This blows the old rifle out of the water, because you don't have to pull back the bolt action every time you shoot now, and this thing pops heads like it's going out of style. It's also time for a slight scenery change, as the brutal gothic stonework in the hall is about to be switched up for galleries in the drawing room. Yes, this is the posh part of the castle. And somehow the Zealot leader is back. So is there just one of these guys, or is it the same again? Because I'm pretty sure I blew his head off. Oh, and now some of the cultist members wear bulletproof helmets. How inconsiderate. These rooms are still quite large, but they feel tight and cramped in some spots. There are still many ways the Ganados can pathfind to the player, and in sections like this you can hear their jangling chains, so it feels like they're circling around you. The gallery comes in such a stark contrast to anything we've seen so far. This room would almost feel normal, if it wasn't for the fact you've got to chase down the Zealot leader for the key. Before getting to the drawing room, it's almost like they forgot this was a Resident Evil game. So here's a mandatory puzzle based on portraits, and math. Yay, math? I didn't do too well in math back in the day, but now we've got a calculator in our pocket all the time, so fuck you, teachers.
What did you say?
How would you like to suck my balls?
The scythe-wielding guys aren't a joke either. They've got a fair bit of range on their attack, and if you get too far away they're going to throw the scythe at Leon. And yeah, this can happen.
What a pleasant surprise. But I'm afraid it's Ashley we need. Not you, Mr. Kennedy.
If you don't need me, then get off my back, old man.
Did you say old man, Mr. Kennedy? It might come as a surprise, but I'm only 20 years old.
Well, I really don't give a damn. Rain or shine, you're going down.
Get rid of our American friend.
It really feels like Salazar is trying to end Leon here, with more crossbow Ganados, and these two blokes are fucking RPGs. It becomes a game of Ring Around the Rosie and Peekaboo here. Then just for fun, 2 more show up. But don't worry, this was all for the first key, of the goat variety. After passing some crows in a room that's locked, it's time Leon takes a walk around a hedge maze. And don't ask me why, but this place always reminds me of that one Cortex Castle track in Crash Team Racing. And this section is honestly pretty chill. That's if it wasn't for those damn dogs lurking about. I think this is the last time they show up too, which means this is one of the rare Resident Evil games that has barely any dog enemies up until this point. Salazar is also a bit too keen to hint what's coming up, and the fact there might be more pieces at play here. This must be one chaotic day for the castle and all its staff.
You will satisfy the stomachs of my cute pets. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to tie up a few loose ends, like chasing down a couple of rats.
2 rats? If one's Lewis, who's the other? Huh. They're an intruder besides me?
The hedge maze section is another section I'm not embarrassed to say that scared me back in the day, as the dogs jump out seemingly whenever they want, and these dogs can't be avoided. They will gang up on Leon and rip his throat out at a moment's notice. There are points when it looks like they're caged up, but this is merely a formality. They also sprout tentacles from the parasite, no doubt, which in itself is another level of disgusting. Their backs open up like a mouth, and now it's starting to remind me of the Thing.
I don't know what the hell's in there, but it's weird and pissed off, whatever it is.
Oh, and because video games are in Resident Evil, there'll be 2 sides of a medallion here to collect. So that means searching every inch of this maze. And after putting these together, Leon's going to encounter an old acquaintance. What follows is just art.
Put your hands where I can see them.
Sorry, but following a lady's lead just isn't my style.
Both feel confident here, with each person getting the upper hand. Until Leon shuts us down.
Bit of advice, try using knives next time. Works better for close encounters.
Leon.
And wait a minute, is this the legendary Ada Wong?
Long time no see.
I had no idea who this was until she took the glasses off.
So it is true.
True? About what?
You, working with Wesker.
Now by this point I don't think it was made abundantly clear that Wesker wasn't dead, because sure his body did disappear in the labs below the Spencer mansion, but most players probably thought he just turned into a zombie or something like that. He also shows up in Code Veronica X, but not as many people played that game compared to Resident Evil 4, and the internet wasn't in everyone's fucking pocket back then either. It was in a PC in the corner of the room, damn it, where it belongs. But this would be a nice tease for what was to come in Resident Evil 5. And this might be why 6 feels so directionless. But here Leon drops that he knows Ada was working with Wesker. And I'm sorry, but how does he know this? The last time he saw Ada, she was, presumed dead. Sure, someone slipped him a rocket launcher at the end of that game, but he never saw who. And in classic Ada fashion, she doesn't let much slip, before she disappears in a puff of smoke.
Why are you here? Why'd you show up like this?
See you around.
Ada!
The next chapter starts off with a puzzle based on wine, so naturally I aced this one, even if I don't drink wine much anymore because I'm on keto a lot of the time. And come on, you don't need a mastermind to solve this one. This grants access to the display room, which triggers a cage match with a Garrador. And no word of a lie, this encounter can be bloody tough, even on the standard difficulty. Because the whole point of cage matches in years past was that it was meant to end feuds and stop the combatants from getting out. Apparently the Zealots don't care about this, as they drop inside the structure to make it even more cramped. Oh, and they're shooting crossbows at you from the outside as well. The Garrador doesn't care if Leon escapes either, because this blind bastard is going to keep searching for the player. This really is lazy booking. The next room feels like a natural extension of the castle, what with it having such a weird layout. Half the room is caged off and for some reason there's a raising bridge, but what matters most is the free rocket launcher in the display case. This will come in handy later. Unfortunately after this high, the game's about to hit a low point, because well, just take a look.
Leon! I got it!
In steps the Dark Lord Saddler, with a giant killer penis? Sorry, where the hell does this come from? And how does he fit it under that? I get this sort of thing happens more than once in Resident Evil. Not the giant penis, the, body mass coming out of nowhere. And sometimes it feels just a bit magical. And even if this did work like a penis, he'd have no blood left in his body. So does the Plaga just create mass out of nowhere? Who cares really?
Saddler!
My boy Salazar will make sure you follow the same fate.
Then Saddler just walks off. Fair enough. It's here where we find out who Luis really was.
I am a researcher, hired by Saddler. He found out what I was up to.
Don't talk.
Here. It should suppress growth of the parasite. The sample. Saddler took it. You have to get it back.
At least his sacrifice won't be in vain.
Louis! Louis!
Man, this one was a short chapter, but it always bums me out when we lose Luis. So even though I said I wouldn't bring it up, the remake handles Luis much better. Seeing Luis laying there is so grim, man. Especially as he's such a lovable rogue, but there's no time to mourn for him right now, as someone else can be heard. Cause just listen carefully for a second. Doesn't that sound a lot like Ashley? So what, did Saddler not realise she was here? Sure, I get he might not have known, but you can hear her call out for help. And wait a minute, doesn't he have a lock-on for everyone infected with the Lost Plagas parasite? So really Ashley means more to him than the sample, right? She's literally his key for world domination. I go into this like story was the main focus of Resident Evil 4, when it really wasn't back then. It was all about the kick-ass gameplay. Breaking Ashley free, cultists just happened to turn up, because it's a video game. So I guess their search for her just happened to line up with Leon's travels.
Talk about near-death experience.
Ashley, get out of there!
But this part is a snapper's delight, though the Red 9 also works here too. The next section was a real surprise though for a first playthrough, because yeah, we're Ashley now. She's got nothing on her, so that means there's no way to fight Ganados off. There are a couple strategically placed lamps, but for some reason on this playthrough I kept messing with them, and I didn't know that was possible. This section's a bit tense, I'll give the game that, as it's really a game of cat and mouse as you scramble around to open the door. But when I do land a lamp, they seem to take one more than expected. It's when Ashley pulls her torch out that things get real hairy, because not only does this track play, but there's a few too many suits of armour just kicking about here. Surely these all can't be for decoration. The Armour Doer is a suit of armour possessed by Plaga. They've lost their host, so they need a new home. And these enemies can only really be found in the darker part of the castle. In this section all Ashley can do is run. Well, after solving a good old-fashioned tile puzzle, which I'm sure I don't need to explain, completing the section means we now have the Serpent Ornament key. Running away from the armour at the end of this is just so fucking tense. But yeah, this section is really an example of Resident Evil going back to its horror roots. And I'll admit it's quite scary at times, and it just goes to prove that Capcom still has it in them to do horror right. Well, when they choose to anyway. As all you can hear is their feet stamping on the ground as they pursue Ashley. And this might just be enough to distract the player from the QuickTime event that comes up. Escaping this part, it really feels like you can finally breathe again. It's a real relief to have Leon and Ashley reunited.
Leon!
Ashley! You did good.
I'm sorry if I was...
Oh, don't worry about it. Come on, let's move on.
Because a nice moment can't last long, Salazar chimes in. But Leon has a fourth wall breaking moment as he says what the player's thinking.
Why don't you do us all a favor and leave before the audience gets pissed off?
You're nothing but an extra in my script, so don't get too carried away.
They really wanted to hammer home the script bit, didn't they? Oh, and by now, if you don't have the XL attaché case, then what are you doing with yourself?
Thank you.
Here's where you should really do clean up in the castle, as you're not going to be here for much longer. And by that I mean take Ashley to this room so you can get in. Shame I'm an idiot and bought the broken butterfly earlier. It also feels like the devs ran out of ideas when it came to the castle. Or they just wanted to wrap things up, or maybe they were just throwing shit at the wall. As we reach the Dragon Hall, via whatever the hell this is. Is this an early form of Metal Gear from the Dark Ages? Dragon Hall is just hilarious though. The floor is lava and half the place looks like something out of a sadistic medieval funhouse. But you can tell it's special as the cultists have fancy robes. They also ride 3 mechanical dragons that have the most obvious weak points. You almost feel bad for sending them into the lava below. So after a ride on a fancy tram, we'll be back at the start of the castle. But this isn't over just yet, as there's another fancy tram, followed by a killer hallway. Security is tight here, so Salazar is invested in 2-factor authentication, which means another fetch quest is in order. The first grail, the king version, is guarded by more suits of armour. Running isn't an option here, as they'll need to be eliminated before progressing, but at least Leon can take these guys on. I do say this, but the fuck kill me or Ashley a few times. You've got to be wary once those parasites burst out because they can finish you off fast. Those scythes deal so much damage, and they've got such a long range. Really, it's my fault for trying to take these guys out of one flashbang grenade. Then the dark armor variety are even tougher. They've also got a surprise once you knock their helmet off. You know, all just to sweeten this encounter. So yeah, they will take Leon's head off, if you're an idiot like me. The Queen Grail is just across the hall. It doesn't really require any combat, just pushing a few statues and standing in the right spot. Then going into the next room, Salazar is just here.
I think you've lived long enough. Let's see if you can survive this time.
Does the little scamp really think this is going to stop Leon as Kennedy? Now this whole section feels a little simple, I don't know. I'm using my brain to solve these, I guess. I've probably beaten this game 30 times, maybe even more, but I don't think any of this stumped me back when I first played it. But I've seen the Temple of Doom, so getting out of this room doesn't cause much hassle.
We are going to die!
The next corridor is a little weird though, because sorry, where the fuck did this come from? And what purpose does it even serve? Did Salazar really plan to lure them into this room just to grind them up? Because this never gets Leon, just Ashley, and isn't she the whole point of this fucking game? So if he kills Ashley, does he get fired? So what is Sadler going to say when he finds out that Ashley died? Is Salazar going to get his scary spiky penis? The solution is simple, but damn, I forgot to summon Ashley out of the bloody hallway. Maybe the hate on her was warranted after all. So after not screwing up this time, the music just stops. This is weirdly janky for such a polished video game like Resident Evil 4. And random aside, this section also reminds me of one part in the Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace PS1 game, because this same machine is in that game as well. So did Watto get this from Salazar's castle, or did he sell it to him in the first place?
My trick's gonna work on me, only money.
So with the King and Queen Grail, it'd be time to move on. Well, that would be the case, but I need to talk about the shooting range first. Because this game didn't have enough to do. There's the occasional shooting range when you visit the merchant. He's always outside, and then he's inside. So does he run around the back real quick, or is there more than one of him? This normally isn't my sort of thing, but the shooting range goes to show how refined the gunplay is in Resident Evil 4. Split into rapid fire and sniping. There'll be a selection of ranges to pick from. Most targets will offer double points if you get a headshot, but sometimes center mass will do. You don't always need to get headshots, and like any good shooting range, it's got the friendly targets to avoid. Well, I say this, but I bet a lot of players take their frustration out on Ashley here. Reaching the target score will unlock bottle caps, which essentially is an early form of model viewer. Something that Capcom still kind of do to this day, though they don't really do anything here but make a few sounds. So pretty much a model viewer then. But completing this, you do get a few pesetas for your troubles too. I'm pretty sure the first line of bottle caps also spoils the appearance of Ada Wong. Sure, you can see her through the window earlier, but she's not being properly introduced when you see the first line.
Leon, now!
But can we all agree this hallway has such a vibe? This is such a random part of the game, but it always sticks out to me in memory. And because of the plot, Ashley's grabbed by some flying bastards. And then this wide open room, the Novistadors aren't that scary now.
Damn it! Ashley!
Leon really needs to block Salazar, because at this point the guy won't stop calling. Then there's everything from avoiding catapults to unblocking some metal gears. Though when you finally do that and turn this building around, I love that this one cutscene is still so low res. Like the devs just lost this one file, and they've never been bothered to recreate it. Come to think of it, I wonder if it's like that in the VR version. And the combat here does get a little sweaty. You've got hardly any room to maneuver about, and so many Ganados in fancy robes come out of the woodwork. Fuck, even more RPG guys. And then when you think you're done, the next room's got another challenge, because now you've got to face off against 2 Garradors, and it looks like one of them's been to the merchant, because he's got some fancy armour on. Now I always find it easier to draw these guys over to me and then take them out, because if you go further down the room, Ganados are going to spawn. So yeah, prior knowledge does make this fight easier, but isn't that the point of video games? Plus it's an excuse to use the sniper again, which is never a bad thing. This fight is honestly a great little twist on an enemy we faced twice before, and if you get those Ganados in the mix, it makes this pretty sweaty. This section even forces me to break out the Magnum, which most seasoned Resident Evil players know you should save this sort of weapon for the bosses. After ending those stragglers, finally it's time to take Salazar on and rescue the damsel. When sure, Capcom pulled the oldest trick in the book.
Mr. Kennedy, don't you know when it's time to throw in the towel?
No! Leon!
Where's the satisfying sound of one's impalement?
Don't fall for this old trick.
How dare you! No more games! Kill him!
Wait a minute, I say that as my sign off. And if bursting an eardrum wasn't bad enough, Leon utterly destroys Salazar here.
I've sent my right hand to dispose of you.
Your right hand comes off?
But boy, I wish Leon didn't trigger Salazar that hard, because now the game switches back into horror mode. And I can't express how badly this section fucked me up as a teen. Yeah, I was a wimp at times, what can I say? This all comes from my unnecessary fear of the Xenomorph from the Alien franchise. They just freak me out. And come on, Verdugo is literally a Xenomorph. Thank Christ we only really have to deal with one of them, as the black cloaked Verdugo sticks with Salazar. Literally, come to think about it, the red cloak though, he pursues the fuck out of Leon down the waterway. Both Verdugos were created by fusing human DNA with insect DNA, then basically mixing it up with a Plaga parasite. Apparently one was a former butler, and the other a housemaid. So yeah, this checks out as rich kid behaviour. Sure you can kill this thing, but I always go for the flight option here. I think I've killed Verdugo once or twice in my time, that's it. Soon as the elevator's ready though, I'm gone. Come to think of it, I should probably mention the scenario though. Essentially Leon needs to get the lift going again, but this takes time, so the Verdugo is going to exploit this and try and kill Leon. Verdugo doesn't always attack head on either. It can be in the floor or in the ceiling, but not in the goddamn walls, thank God. This makes their encounter QTE central for a hot minute, and it's a scramble just to get out of the first little room. And watching my footage back, this track also sounds like something you'd hear in Aliens. There are handy canisters of liquid nitrogen hanging about, which will slow the bastard down. And if you're brave enough, you can break it into 1,000 pieces, just like the T-1000.
Hasta la vista, baby.
As for me, I barely make it to the lift in time. But before this chapter ends, it seems like Saddler's got another piece in play. Now at the point of introduction, none of us knew who Jack Krauser was, but we will do, very soon.
Salazar had his chance. Krauser, go get the girl. Oh, and dispose of this swine while you're at it.
Consider it done.
Going down, not up. The only way back to the castle is through the mines. Yep, the very one they used to bury the Plaga parasites in. Though since Salazar teamed up with Saddler, or so he thinks, they've been reopened and extended. I wonder if this place is up to code though, because surely something this massive would cause problems for the castle above. And down here we get a sort of swan song to the villagers too, which if I'm being honest, it's nice to see these bastards again. This also helps to tie lore things up as well, as the villagers were forced to dig this mine, and take up the brunt of the work, basically like most mining communities 100 years back. Villagers act like they did before, but now they've just got a lot more dynamite, which kind of makes sense given the environment I guess, and dynamite is key to progress through this mine. With villagers comes an old friend. Yes, somehow Dr. Salvador returns. In the process of writing this script, I did some digging on a certain aspect of Resident Evil 4, like any video creator worth their salt should, even though this technically doesn't make sense now, as salt isn't really worth as much as it was back in the day. But yes, Salvador. Some people seem to think the infamous Chainsaw Man isn't the same guy every time. This is something I simply refuse to believe, because it just takes away from the mystique of this Terminator-esque figure. If Salvador is just a different guy every time, but with the same outfit, that's just shit, man. Yes, I know there are duplicate enemies throughout, but us as players have just come to expect this, because it wastes so many man hours making unique enemies for every single encounter, and nobody wants hacks with no talent spitting out AR games. Also, as this just seems to be another Salvador section, like the Bella sisters, he won't disappear, well in front of the player at least. Unlike all other Ganados, which melt away, Salvador remains until you leave and come back to the location, and then he's gone. I like to imagine he's applying WD-40 to his chainsaw somewhere, or maybe adjusting his bag, because we all know a good raid needs a decent bag to hide your face.
Anybody bring any extra bags?
No, nobody brought an extra bag.
The funny thing is, I've gone on about Salvador for a few paragraphs now, and here, well, just look at this. Later, mate. He went full Boba Fett right here. How his advanced Plaga parasites going to help him get out of this one? I don't know, because I'm pretty sure he'd be grinded into dust here. But anyway, with dynamite in hand, we can light the fuse and bring the boom. And the next room just screams boss fight, doesn't it? And I'm no scientist, but would Leon or anyone for that matter be able to withstand this heat? This is getting out of hand. Now there are two of them. This is why I skipped the El Gigante fight after the cabin, because it just feels redundant. The first one at the door also looks like he's ready to be someone's gimp. I know what they're trying to do here with the design, you know, trying to make it look like El Gigante's being restrained. But he just looks like a saucy cave troll. One thankfully can be dropped in the lava pit below, but if you do this you miss out on his coinage. Then this becomes a box standard encounter. And with the weapons that Leon has to this point, it's fairly easy. Especially as the arena is so wide, and you've got the zipline to take advantage of. Then the game wants to torture me, as you run around this giant cave avoiding flying bastards. The only good bug is the dead bug, as we all know. Apart from the bees. Sorry, Cage.
No, not the bees! Not the bees! Ah!
We need the bees for our world to go around, and I just can't with this enemy type. I bloody hate everything about them. Flies in real life are bad enough, and the buzzing of their wings just get under my skin. And because Resident Evil, turning the lights on melts the door, you've got to appreciate their commitment to the bit. You know, of all this structural nonsense. Who would design this? George Trevor has been dead for a while now, and the next tunnel feels like something out of Indiana Jones or Tomb Raider, but at least you can leave those flying bastards behind. Coming up for some air in the castle ruins, there's a random letter here left by the legendary Ada Wong. This kind of does some heavy lifting to explain the Plaga, and it reminds the player that time is ticking when it comes to the parasite. Though answer me this, how did she know that Leon was going to come this way? We don't spend much time topside, just long enough to come across his mother's meeting. Now what were these villagers chatting about? The greater good?
How can this be for the greater good? The greater good. Shut it!
Or perhaps crusty jugglers?
Crusty jugglers.
Back on the ground, these sand ruins never look like they belong in this game. They look like they were part of another era, or culture, or something like that. Which I guess is the point, giving off a vibe that the Plague has been around for thousands of years, and it might even predate ancient Egypt. And then guess who's back? Back again. Salvador, but he can't manage to climb out of a window. Bless him. Though it turns out this wasn't the doctor, as he's wearing a jacket, because the real McCoy is just waiting downstairs patiently. So is he training a new apprentice in the dark arts of chainsaw manning? This part is just a means to an end though, as a fan favourite section is coming up. But before that, the Temple of Doom Spites are back. And now it comes a Spider Plaga, and this is their debut in the game. Makes sense given the setting. But anyway, it's time for that minecart sequence, which gives me more Temple of Doom vibes, because how could it not? That's the most famous minecart section in film. Though I think I kind of ruined this section for myself. What with the TMP now having 100 rounds in the magazine? I just shot the villagers off the platform before they even got a word in. Even that other Salvador in a fancy jacket. What a shame. Then because video games, Leon's gonna have to navigate a giant mechanized Salazar statue. I guess the devs wanted to up the ante from the previous chapter, or something like that anyway. And because video games again, you can't activate this lever by shooting it, like you could in the prior chapter. Navigating this funhouse-esque gimmick is only stage 1 though, as once the walkways are raised, it bloody chases after Leon. So now it's time for button bashing and quick time event galore. And of course the little fuckers in the next room to gloat.
So nice you could join us, Mr. Scott Kennedy.
And because it was the start of the time, Leon of course has to reference terrorism.
She will join us, become one of us.
This is no ritual, it's terrorism.
Isn't that a popular word these days?
It's about time someone shut Salazar up, but why the knife and not put a round between his eyes? Though I'm kind of glad that Leon didn't kill him here, because I don't want to deal with another Verdugo. Then climbing the tower won't be straightforward, as now this becomes a 3D game of Donkey Kong. Where's Billy Mitchell when you need him?
World Record Headquarters can I help you.
At least you get to use this on the Zealots afterwards. Then it's time for a cursed elevator, which has the weakest weight limit known to man. The riot gun is essential here, especially when Plagas start bursting out all over the shop. Then Capcom pull the whole "the princess is another castle" bullshit.
You just missed her. The ritual is over. She left with my men to an island.
What?
So that means Sadler's got to be dealt with. Thank God Verdugo gets sucked up in there too, because I couldn't imagine fighting Verdugo and this boss.
Monsters. Guess after this there'll be one less to worry about.
And this boss might be imposing, but Leon isn't phased, because real ones know how to deal with this fight. Later, bitch. Honestly, this is how I've dealt with this fight since I was about 13 in 2005. Then Leon just happens to luck out, as he's going to get a ride from the legend herself, Ada Wong.
Need a ride, handsome?
Okay.
Okay, that isn't it. I felt a bit cheap skipping over that last fight, so f it, I'll do it the other way for the first time. Verdugo is between Leon and Salazar, or what's left of him anyway. So shoot in the eye is the best way to get this little Napoleon wannabe to show his face. You just gotta watch out for tentacle strikes above, and spider Plaga below. Oh, and don't get caught reloading at the wrong time. This is a classic war boss fight though. Salazar can't chase Leon, so the player's gonna have to stand and fight to fully shut this guy up. I think my way was better though, because what are you gonna do with that spare rocket launcher now? This boat ride might be the first time and longest time these two have ever sat down. But this game isn't about to become an early prototype of Resident Evil 5 though, so Ada's gonna do her usual shtick and get out of here, almost like she needed Leon on the island.
Got some business to take care of. See you later.
Women.
And before Leon can get a break, Sadler checks in.
Perhaps you are disillusioned with overconfidence, just because you killed my small-time subordinate.
Sadler, you're small-time.
Oh. Writhe in my cage of torment, my friend.
As for the island, this is where Resident Evil 4 is beginning to wrap up, though I say that there are still many hours left. and the island isn't a small environment by any means. It also kind of cements a classic Resident Evil trope that would linger with the series until this very day, some 20 odd years later, and that being, the closing location in Resident Evil never really hold a candle to the opening ones. This kind of makes sense, with most players only really ever seeing the opening, because a crazy amount of people never finish their games. This is partly why I love trophies. It's a great source of public data, so you can just see how far players get, or in this case, don't get, and it makes websites like PSN profiles essential. Now I love me a secret lab or base, probably because of Resident Evil, or maybe James Bond, and I actually think the ending location in Resident Evil 2 is pretty solid, but compared to the RPD it just feels scaled back, and the island in Resident Evil 4 is the opposite. It's mostly comprised from industrial looking environments, and labs that aren't properly maintained. It's uninspired compared to the village and castle for sure, but honestly what else were the devs meant to do? The veil of the cult needed to be lifted at one point, as Leon's now fighting his way out of this demented fairy tale. The island is the rotten underbelly of it all. Fighting through the island is like peeling back the curtain to a play, or more succinctly, exposing Sadler and the cult. I just wish there was more build up to it, rather than just being plopped into an industrial maze. Ganados are just the same as they ever was, but now they're dressed in modern attire, almost like pirates that you'd see around Somalia or other similar regions of the world. They carry a lot of the same weapons that we saw in the castle, which is a bit weird, and to me it feels like a bit of an afterthought. The outpost is the first time you ever encounter them, and really it just feels like a palette swap than anything else. The Ganados do have a few new weapons, but mostly they're just wielding what the villagers and zealots had. The cattle prods are no joke though, but you'd think these guys would be more advanced. Saying this, I'm not advocating for them to have guns or anything like that, but maybe a few should have, I don't know, rather than them just having a medieval arsenal. They've still got wooden shields for God's sake. These really should have been metal by now, or like a plastic riot shield or something like that. The captain of Sadler's militia. He's the only Plaga infected enemy that wields a gun, and it just happens to be a Gatling gun, acting as the Salvador for this part of the game. He shows up several times throughout the island, but unlike Salvador, he can't kill the player in a single hit, so he's kind of easier to defeat. After moving some laser beams to open the door ahead, there will be some clues to the origin of the Plaga and the cult, but only slightly. But really, this is mostly just a shooting gallery, as Leon fights his way up the hillside. From here on, Resident Evil 4 is pretty much all out action. And I'm not really taking shots at the game here for that, because it's never not fun to fight enemies in RE4. Getting inside, the game attempts to build some atmosphere, as it was just all out war a moment ago, but not even spooky music will get under most players' skin now. This fucking guy though, gets me every time. What the fuck was he doing in there? Here's where hammer Ganados start to enter the mix too, but they look more imposing than they actually are. They do hit hard though. In the background, those unmistakable cries for help can be heard. But Ashley isn't quite here. She's just on CCTV, and I never get why the switches for the cameras are located in the cell.
Amateurs.
Then there's this whack-a-mole style door section, which I'm sure is just here to slow the player down for a bit. Seriously, this just feels like it's been pulled straight out of a sketch comedy, but the next lab is anything but a laugh. Because this is where the Regenerators are introduced. After this colourful puzzle anyway, grabbing the freezer key, this is just another area to get Leon from A to B. A means to an end if you will. But turning around, there's a 7-foot demon waiting to greet Leon. This is literally the stuff of nightmares, because these things, they fucked me up when I first played Resident Evil 4. We will actually refer to these as Regenerators, rather than Regenerators, as the English version of the game was mistakenly corrected. So I'm probably just going to end up referring to these as Regenerators, because they're Regenerators to me. These terrors look and sound otherworldly. The Regenerators were products of infecting the host with multiple Plaga parasites. This essentially turned them feral, and they're violent towards almost anyone. That's why nobody's down here, as this one killed 7 people just to lock it up. And because they got multiple parasites crammed into them, the Regenerators do what they say on the tin. Limbs and chunks of their body can be blown off, but they're just going to grow back, to the point that these things feel invincible. After taking enough damage they will eventually go down, but these things take a lot of punishment. So the quickest means of killing them is by eliminating the parasites inside. Blowing off a leg means they're just going to slither towards Leon, before leaping out of nowhere. And again, just listen to this shit. still gives me the creeps to this day. Oh, and blowing their head off doesn't do much either. Thankfully there's a game changer in the freezer. The infrared scope lights up the Plaga inside, making them an easy target. So you can do the standard Resident Evil thing and shoot the glowy thing, which is the weak spot. Shooting them will stun the enemy, and taking them all out will cause the Regenerator to explode. You don't need to kill them once you got the card, but I do it out of principle, and you get a little reward too. Then the tone changes again, as Leon can play a claw game with some Ganados. Resident Evil 4 just does what it wants at this point.
Help me, Leon!
And these two hammer bros won't get in our way after the Regenerators. They're child's play at this point. And of course these guys don't have the key, do they? Because yep, a Regenerator has it. But not just any Regenerator. This is an Iron Maiden. No one tell the band. These are essentially super Regenerators. They're tougher, they've got more parasites, and they're covered in spikes, hence the Iron Maiden name, because those arms can extend quite far, and if you get caught, they're going to pull Leon in for a hug. And I can't help but think if Resident Evil 4 was made today, this would be a pursuer style enemy. But after finally putting this thing down, Leon and Ashley can reunite.
You okay? Come on, let's get out of here.
Interestingly enough, the next chapter starts off with the legendary Ada Wong getting hold of Leon in the most unconventional way. It's cute and all that, but if everyone else in their Plaga can call Leon, then why doesn't Ada just call him? But anyway, this paper aeroplane is essentially the reason Leon escapes, because before he got this information, where was he gonna go? Not too long ago he dumped Ganados in this pit and they died. Then even though the cattle prod gives away their position, the Ganados ambush Leon in this tiny room, and it can get a little sweaty. Then Ashley and Leon make the leap of faith. Well, I say that, because I think Leon forgets he's on a rescue mission.
No way, Leon.
Way?
And just look at where Ashley landed, so close to those spikes.
I knew you'd be fine if you landed on your butt.
And if it was me landing like that, my back would be fucked. And then of course, because video games, the Iron Maiden gets up. And it even cheats because it's got Plaga on the back, and so does his mate. I'm assuming the next room is here because one of the devs got bored, as this room is just so random. Because who needs a wrecking ball in such a small place like this? It's randomly above lava, and why is there a door behind some crumbling concrete? Then there's signs of things to come in gaming over the next 10 years, as a two-person door stands between the player and a pseudo on-rail sequence. Again, this just feels like more ideas thrown at the wall. Back when it was so much cheaper to make games, I guess they could get away with this. And this truck section is just here, honestly. It might be one of the most forgettable parts of Resident Evil 4. Hell, I forgot about it before replaying this game, and I've played this game so many times. And I'm pretty sure this is one of the only sections that didn't make it into the remake, so that's saying something. And just like this video, the game should have just cut to the next room with Emperor Palpatine. I mean, Osmund Sadler.
Sadler!
Perhaps you can resist, but you cannot disobey. Now, come to me, Ashley.
Not even back together for an hour, Ashley is taken away. Pretty much for good this time.
Ashley!
What's the news on our friend, Leon?
He's not making it easy. The sample?
Sadler's got it. It seems he sniffed out our little game.
There's that guy in the beret again, who seems to be working with Ada, in a double or triple cross on Sadler for Wesker.
If you try to do anything clever, I will kill you.
Is that so? You know, I met Wesker long before you.
We'll see soon enough if you did.
Don't you just miss when games could set shit up years in advance? Though saying that, Capcom has dropped a bunch of plot threads in Resident Evil over the years. After raiding this one lone storage cupboard, Leon comes face to face with an old comrade, and he comes with a bunch of QuickTime events. Now don't listen to what anyone says now. These mechanics were cool back in 2005. I'll die on that hill. The gameplay of Resident Evil 4 is stellar, but you'd never be able to have a fight like this, so a cutscene was necessary.
Been a long time, comrade.
Krauser. Because a bunch of choreography goes into something like this, and the fun thing about this cutscene, well, you can die.
I died in a crash 2 years ago. Is that what they told you?
You're the one who kidnapped Ashley.
You catch on quick, as expected. After all, you and I both know where we come from.
There's enough here in the brief fight to set up the last part of the game. Who is Krauser, and what mission did they go on? What does Umbrella have to do with all this? And whose side is Ada really on? This is classic Resident Evil, as Capcom love to drop a bunch of questions on the player in the closing hours.
Oh, I needed her to buy Sadler's trust in me. Like you, I'm American. All for Umbrella's sake.
Umbrella?
Almost let it slip. Enough talk. Die, comrade!
Ada!
Well, if it isn't the bitch in the red dress.
Looks like we have the upper hand here.
You may be able to prolong your life, but it's not like you can escape your inevitable death, is it?
Sadler calls the globe, but really he's the third wheel now.
Enjoy the reunion with your old friend?
As a matter of fact, I did.
Wonderful.
Which reminds me, there's still another whole boss fight to come, though not before the legacy of Paul W.S. Anderson is immortalised in Resident Evil history. Because we get a laser corridor in this game. This became such a major part of the Alice films for some reason, because I think the laser corridor features in most of those movies. Sony and Capcom should just make this thing sentient, like the Hell House from the Final Fantasy VII Remake. This was the first big Resident Evil game to release after their foray into live action, so it's kind of cool the devs gave a nod to this. Then, a meme was born. Oh, and remember Puddlegate. Some people need to get a real hobby. Deep underground in what feels like a hollow mountain, there's a weird suspended mousetrap maze, but Ashley has been this way apparently, so we've got to push on. But of course, Leon isn't alone, as U3 makes his entrance. Maybe this is what came out of Bono's arse all those years ago on South Park. This chimera is a mixture of human, insect, and reptile DNA. With only a face a mother could love, it chases the player around a suspended cage area, all whilst this place starts to fall into the endless abyss. Now don't get me wrong, this section is a cool idea, but it feels like it comes too late in the game, especially as the plot really needs to start wrapping up. It's nice and tense though, just a reminder that this game can dip into horror at a moment's notice. Shooting enough lights will allow the player to progress. As a timer kicks in, Alien style, there's a very industrial nature to this rig sequence. I'm not sure what purpose it serves, but it's a creative bit of game design. Then I've got to call bullshit on this, because how does the U3 get up so fast? Now this part's all about avoiding its second mouth, and putting some red barrels to good use. QTEs are sometimes all that stands between life and death, as this thing burrows underground. Then it breaks gates down, which would really take a player by surprise back in 2005. Eventually this thing goes down, but not before eating a bunch of magnum ammo, and getting one last cheeky hit in. Come on, this camper's asking for trouble. Why do you have so many red barrels laying about? It's almost as if they were just asking for it. But it's who's up next is going to pose the real challenge, as Krauser emerges from the ruins of an old civilization.
So, you two are all hooked up now, is that it?
The kid gloves are off for this fight, as Jack Krauser is essentially a more talkative Rambo, but with a few more enhancements.
It pretty much means you're on a tight leash.
Sounds like you thought this one out pretty well.
Krauser was one of the few elite soldiers chosen to lead the special unit that would eventually embark on Operation Heavy Air. He's trained a few candidates in his time too, with one of them being Leon S. Kennedy. Krauser is the reason that Leon is so skilled in close quarter combat now, as he and the other candidates were put through grueling trials, turning them into the next generation of operators. Thought to be dead, it was around the time of Operation Javier that Krauser was made aware of Los Illuminados, and he chose them over his country. In exchange for his superior parasite, Krauser armed the cult. So yeah, he's the reason they've got some up-to-date weaponry. Well, almost, because I don't think he's handing out crossbows. So really, Leon's lucky he's facing them now, because who knows what they'll be packing in a few years. Krauser doesn't fight Leon head on. That's just not his style. He's a hunter, watching and waiting for the perfect time to strike. Once he's engaged, it'd be hard to shake off by traditional means, because close up he's deadly, but from afar he's pretty dangerous too. He mostly wields a knife and TMP respectively, never really giving the player a break as they navigate through the ruins.
Every move.
Krauser's also got random drone lads to help him out for some reason, and while recording this voiceover I've been replaying Code Veronica X. I just noticed these drones are very similar to the ones that Wesker has in that game. So are they going to the same retailer or what? Finding the first piece of the key, Leon attempts to understand why Krauser is doing this.
What do you intend to do restoring Umbrella?
To bring order and balance to this insane world of ours.
A psycho like you can't bring order or balance.
You don't seriously think a conservative mind can chart a new course for the world, do you?
The trick with this boss fight is not to run away, instead stand your ground, which is a shake-up when it comes to Resident Evil bosses, as there is a rudimentary form of blocking and parrying in this game. Just stop taking aim as Krauser gets close, and this is something I didn't really know for years, and be ready for cover when he takes pot shots because he will destroy your health. As this goes on, it almost feels like Krauser's playing with his food, as he scopes Leon out and tests him for weaknesses. I just wonder how this warrior would feel if his drones took Leon out first. Grabbing the second piece of the key, there's no more running.
2 down, 1 more to go, Krauser.
We'll see about that.
Krauser ditches his weapons and lets the Plaga take hold. Now almost like an angel of death, his left arm represents a wing. Is he the true one-winged angel? And this wing acts as a shield, as well as a lethal weapon. And it will skewer Leon if the player isn't careful. Oh, and there's a time limit during this fight just to sweeten the deal. This rookie cop has come a long way though, so now the apprentice becomes the master.
So, it seems you killed Krauser too.
Sadler almost seems happy that Leon's been taken out as subordinates, and just like a certain other Dark Lord, he's always looking for a replacement. I can understand why Sadler was so confident here though, as he's got a whole other army up here.
Hey, it's about time.
Sorry, bad traffic. I'll cover you.
Finally, a bit of air support though. But what the hell is Mike doing here? Also, you've got to love the old helicopter trope, where one moment it's quiet and the next it just appears, like you wouldn't be able to hear this thing coming. Helicopters are so damn loud. Mike doesn't make this last section trivial, but he sure does help clear the way for Leon. Now this is an all-out full frontal assault on Sadler's militia. Not even JJ can stand in our way.
Now that's what I call backup.
Breaching the gate, Leon could do with another bingo bell, when Mike saves the day again. I sure do hope nothing happens to this overpowered ally.
Thanks. When we get out of here, drinks are on me.
Yeah, hey, I know a good bar.
Oh fuck. Mike!
Mike!
I would joke that Leon only knew Mike for a minute, but at least these two had a moment to bond. But he does sound more pissed over this than when Krauser died, and he knew Krauser for years.
I'll make sure you're the next to go, Sadler.
All we can do now is take revenge. Screw the mission. It seems like the Plaga parasite is starting to take its toll on Leon, to the point that not even Ada is safe.
You okay?
Yeah. Sorry, Ada.
And of course they don't team up here. Classic Resident Evil. But really Ada is off doing her own thing, which we kind of get to play later on. And I'll eventually get to that.
We have to get that parasite out of your body.
Yeah. But before that, I gotta save Ashley.
Fine. Let's split up.
As for Leon, he's got a classic horror section up next. And what the fuck is in this bag? Because this dingy holding cell area is the stuff of nightmares, and you can hear the bastards before you even see them. I swear the build up to fighting Regenerators is worse than the battle itself, but thankfully this is the last one Leon has to deal with, and blowing this one away is literally a pair of legs at the end. I think this next section is one of the reasons why many players don't like replaying the island, including myself, because it feels like it just keeps going on and on and on. The previous Charge of Mike felt like it should have been the last battle before facing Sadler, but it just isn't. There's a whole other garrison of Ganados to deal with. Oh, and look, JJ's back too. And I just gotta ask, why was there a regenerator before this? Did they just have an overflow of them or something? Red barrels, grenades and popping off heads all help thin out the herd, as well as bottlenecking them once JJ's dealt with. And it feels like you're just going through the motion at this point. Get the keycard so you can get out of here and move on. Unlike the village square, the player's got so much more at their disposal now. But this encounter just feels disposable. And then just thinking about other encounters, the Waterfall at least has some stakes to it. Honestly, it just feels like padding in a game that's very fucking long. Now with all that sorted, it's finally time to save Ashley. When Sadler just comes out of hiding. Where was he, the corner?
You'll soon harbor an awesome power. Yet it seems you would rather choose death.
I'm taking Ashley back, whether you like it or not.
Looking back, it really feels like Sadler has Leon's number here. So that's twice in the game that Ada has saved him.
Leon, now!
Let's go!
God, how many red barrels do you need, mate? Then thanks to Luis and his lab, both are finally free of the last Plagas parasite.
I don't know about you, but I think it's time we go home.
Venturing back through the other lab, it seems like Ada and Sadler tore this place apart, but where are they now? Things are a little too quiet, so Leon basically leaves Ashley in the middle of nowhere, not even with a place to hide. So I'm just going to pretend that she was hanging out at the merchant, because that's where he should have left her.
You stay here.
At the construction site, we get to find out what happened to Ada and Sadler, and I've just noticed that Leon uses Krauser's knife here. That's a nice touch. Then just like that, it's time for the final boss fight.
What's so funny?
Oh, I think you know. The American prevailing is a cliche that only happens in your Hollywood movies. Oh, Mr. Kennedy, you entertain me. To show my appreciation, I will help you awaken from your world of cliches.
Now is this just me being ignorant? Because this doesn't look all that appealing. Sure, I've never been a giant Plaga monster myself, but how do you get anything done looking like this? Sure, Sadler's original body is mostly intact, but what was his plan after this? Does all this mass just fold back into itself? Walking around like this, you've got the obvious Resident Evil weak spots. You're also wide open to random red bowels exploding. And how do you eat with a giant eyeball in your mouth? And once enough knee eyeballs are popped, this leaves Sadler's mouth eyeball open to attack. The whole form is just impractical. As long as you don't get fancy with this fight, it might be one of the most easiest boss fights in this game if I'm being honest. There aren't really any insta-kill situations here. Sadler is slow, the weak points are plentiful, and the environment can be used to knock him out. But it also can cause Leon some pain too. I mean, this doesn't even kill Leon, when this did. Oh, and this. Thankfully, Ada didn't leave Leon to fend for himself, because she's read the Resident Evil handbook. But this rocket launcher is a bit different, and just like that, the leader of Los Illuminados is done. And just like that, Ada pulls a bit of a heel turn.
Sorry, Leon. Hand it over.
Ada, you do know what this is.
Here, catch.
To cue the epic escape on a jet ski. And for dramatic effect, a wall of waters go chase Leon. The only thing this escape is missing is sharks, I swear. And good on Ashley for trying it on after all that.
So, after you take me back to my place, how about we do some, overtime?
Sorry.
Somehow I knew you'd say that, but it doesn't hurt to ask, you know? So, who was that woman anyway?
Why do you ask?
Come on, tell me.
She's like a part of me I can't let go. Let's leave it at that.
But for now, only one woman has a stranglehold on Leon's heart. As the two ride off into the sunset, that was Resident Evil 4. What a fucking game. Now, as long as this video is, I'd probably get shit in the comments for not mentioning Mercenaries. This mode debuted in Resident Evil 3 as the Mercenaries. Back then it was all about racking up kills and getting to the end, navigating through Raccoon City as it fell apart. Here though, it's all about fighting the clock as you rack up the score. And once you beat Resident Evil 4, it's a good excuse to keep playing this game. And this was just the second time this mode showed up, but it basically established everything you need in Mercenaries. It's a bit of a shame that no trophies were tied to this mode though, and there are 4 maps to choose from. The classic village square, the catapult area in the castle, that one section of the island that Mike destroys, and the docks? Yeah, the docks were something brand new for this. The village square is really the only map not changed in Mercenaries, as the castle and the island have been tweaked. And playing this mode is just a reminder how perfect the village square is. And you know what? I prefer the changes they made to the castle, though I guess this is the bit that was broken in the main game. The island is alright I guess, but it's just the island. And the docks is interesting, let's just say that. Each map also gets a mini-boss. A Garrador outside the castle, JJ's on the island, because of course, and then for the docks you get a Super Salvador? No wait, Super Salvadors at times. The rest work how you think, but these Super Salvadors are bloody deadly. Not only do they fucking run, but they're chaotic. Just look at these guys. If the original wasn't scary enough, then these guys certainly are. As for the Ganados, they're the same as they are in the main game. You get villagers in the village, zealots in the castle, and soldiers on the island and docks, so fighting against them plays how you'd expect. But I don't need to run down that now because I've already gone through that in this video. Killing more Ganados can get you time on the clock though, and you can also collect more time around the map as you progress. And after beating each target score, you unlock more characters to play as. You start off as Leon because of course, but you can also unlock Ada, Hunk, Jack Krauser, and Albert Wesker. But all in all, Mercenaries is just a solid mode, and it should be in every Resident Evil game. So we can keep making use of the great gameplay the devs crafted. After Resident Evil 4 didn't get the sales it needed for Capcom on the GameCube, as I mentioned earlier in the video, it was quickly ported to PS2, so Capcom threw in another incentive for players to buy it, that being separate ways. There are a few other modes in this game, but Separate Ways is really the standout one. That's because it offers players the perspective of the legendary Ada Wong. And though it might sound exciting at first, when you start playing it, it's a little underwhelming. Now it's more substantial than playing as Ada in Resident Evil 2, because really that was just running through a few rooms and pushing a few boxes. So in a way this mode is like playing Resident Evil 4 again, but in a truncated sense.
Yes, but nobody remembered to roll out my red carpet.
As for the most part, Ada's going to be running through territory that Leon's already tread. And at first, this is just literally running through the level but the other way around. But it does get a bit more substantial as the levels go on. And if anything, the major thing this mode did was flesh out the story. Umbrella might be down and out, but that doesn't mean their tech and labs just went away, as Wesker is still very much making use of all this, as he works in the shadows to his ultimate goal. And looking back at this, it was quite wild to see Ada working on Wesker, and ultimately this will build to things yet to come. And I'm sure by this point Capcom didn't have everything planned out, but it was nice to have some extra breadcrumbs sprinkled into this game. But straight up Ada goes out of her way to let us know that she's got her own motive, even if essentially she's a freelancer for Wesker at this point.
The only reason I've taken on this mission is to get closer to my own objective. No matter what happens, I can't let anyone figure that out.
And after finding her way to the village and fighting off a few Ganados, Wesker fills her in on how to distract them.
The villagers there are all being controlled. They automatically attack any intruders. Ring the church bell. That should quiet them down for a while.
So already it's kind of cool to see multiple motives intersect into the village, and throughout all this Wesker is just watching from his comfy chair, and his first fight in the village square is basically the same as Leon's. You can hear Leon off in the distance fending for himself, which is a cool touch. We even get the same Chainsaw Man cutscene, and to be honest, Ada pretty much plays like Leon. They share a bunch of weapons too, but she does get some gear of her own, namely the hook shot, which lets her get to places that Ganados can't reach. Because for some reason the chicken has the key. It's just a shame that we can't get the shotgun because Leon's gonna need that. Ada does get her own shotgun, but it didn't save me from one of the Bella sisters. And the hook shot really becomes a staple of Ada Wong, as she'll rely on it a lot in this game, and then Resident Evil 6. I'm just wondering if she's using it by the time in Resident Evil Village, because yeah, at one point she was going to be in Resident Evil Village, but she was cut. What a shame. And she doesn't turn up in the main game of Requiem either, so what's she doing? Maybe she turns up in the DLC. Here's only hoping. Once inside the church, it'd be a case of doing the RGB puzzle, but upside down this time. And with that, Leon is saved for now.
Oh, la campana.
Ringing the bell wasn't going to do it though, as Wesker's always got something else for Ada to do.
We have an irregularity. The researcher we planted has been discovered by the Illuminados.
You must be talking about that vagrant Spaniard. So where is he now?
He's held captive in an abandoned house located northeast of the village. Until he recovers the sample, we can't let him die.
So now it's time to save Luis, which really just consists of running back and forth throughout the village, because you get to where Luis is being held, but you see the Ganados have him and now Leon, so that means it's time for some backtracking. This is Capcom doing their best to recycle maps they've got, and trying to weave Ada into the story, I guess. Getting back to Mendez's house, we see the cutscene from Ada's perspective. And turns out she got taken captive, thanks to a handy tranquilizer dart. Waking up on that random sacrificial slab, and not failing the quick time event like I did, Ada's gonna have to play catch up all night, and even face off against an El Gigante. This is why I always choose the Bella sisters in the main game now, and after taking down that cave child wannabe, she'll finally hook up with Luis.
Where's the sample?
Okay, we skipped the foreplay. As a matter of fact, I was just going to get it. Where's the love, baby?
And it's pretty cool to see these characters interact, I won't lie, because I'm always here for more Luis. Oh, and I should mention after each chapter, Ada has a little debrief. This always reminds me of the intro sequences from Alice in the Resident Evil films now. You know when Alice would run down the story and try and catch everyone up?
He's accumulated a pile of data and pieced it all together. Must be why Sadler hired him. Too bad Sarah's snooping has aroused his suspicion.
Chapter 3 teleports us all the way to the castle, to the point where Ada and Leon finally meet, and after that Wesker's going to chime in with more orders, because the sample is all he wants, and he'll do anything to get it.
Luis has succeeded in recovering the sample. He's waiting in the castle. Get in contact with him, ASAP.
Which means he wants Leon S. Kennedy dead, no questions.
We can't let him interfere with our plans.
He has no idea what's going on. He's nothing we need to worry about.
Moments like this are pretty decent because you get to see the conflict within Ada. Sure, she has her own motives, but would she actually do it? Making her way through the castle, she's gonna have to contend with some of the Zealots herself. And when I say some, I mean a lot. Because now they're all over the hedge maze, as all the dogs are dead. And because it's already here, she's gonna have a cage match with a Garrador as well. Though I found this section much more tougher than when I was playing with Leon, so I had to run back into the dining hall to finish this thing off. And catching up with Leon, Ada doesn't follow up on Wesker's orders.
Leon, I'm sorry, but I can't be seen with you.
And then before she can get to Luis, Leon does. Damn Sadler and his giant Plaga penis. Then I don't really know how Leon doesn't catch on that Ada's here, but video games I guess. Then just like that, Wesker's got a change of heart, because it benefits him for now.
Have you had a chance to eliminate Leon?
Not yet.
If that's the case, then maybe we can capitalize on his little lucky streak. Take advantage of the distraction he is causing for Sadler and his followers to retrieve the sample.
Wesker does change his mind pretty quick though, because in the next chapter after some dick measuring between Ada and Krauser, he's now got a kill order on him.
Sadler's people have fallen into a panic. Their destruction is only a matter of time now.
Once he gets Ashley back, his job will be finished. He'll no longer be a factor.
No, I'm leaving Leon to Krauser. Hurry up and retrieve the sample.
But defiant as ever, Ada's not going to let that happen. It's pretty obvious, but I should mention by now that we're already on the island, and this is where this mode finally gets unique, at least in this iteration anyway, because now Ada's in uncharted territory. Sure, we did drive through this area in the bulldozer, so Capcom do what they do best. They make use of already built assets, which some people are crying over these days, but get over yourself. It's almost as bad as Puddlegate. And because this section is unique to Ada, it plays to her strengths, meaning that you can use the hookshot a lot more, and I'm just happy to have something different, because the island can be a bit of a slog. For what is a slog is the next section, because the harbour is just weird, man. For some reason Ada's got to take on a battleship of all things, and avoiding these cannons can be a fucking nightmare. But really, what else should you expect when you've played the entirety of Resident Evil 4? Capcom will have to throw the big guns at the player at some point. Literally in this case. So even though this section felt like hell at some points, you gotta appreciate that Capcom did something new. And it's after sinking this fucking boat that I finally get her legendary crossbow. And look how this boat sinks, it's almost comical. But Ada's crossbow though, it's no joke. Firing a bolt at the Ganado will cause them to turn to red mist, so it's really helpful for clearing out a bunch of crowds, or just a few shielded bastards. And not long after that, it'd be time for Ada to save Leon again.
You knew each other?
More or less. Maybe it's about time you told me the reason why you're here?
Maybe some other time.
Well, I've already mentioned them once, but these Ada vlogs are pretty neat, even if it's just spelling out to the player what's going on. But Ada doesn't get a lot of screen time in the series, so it's nice to know what she's thinking for once.
His role didn't exist at all until a few months ago. Back then, my role was much simpler too. But that was before the president's daughter was abducted and Leon was dispatched alone to find her. Talk about a major script revision.
Picking up where Mike left off, Ada gets more orders from Wesker, as he's playing a clever game here.
Report. Time is almost up.
Krauser's dead.
Really? Leon doesn't die easily. That's fine. We can use him to clean up Sadler for us. We'll let them fight it out. Neither one of them will manage to come out unharmed.
Easier said than done.
Either way, it's your job to clean up what's left of them when the fight is over. Don't forget who is running the show.
Mike and Leon have literally destroyed this place, so why is this guy smiling so much? Then somehow JJ returns, but he'll eat a few crossbow bolts, no worry. Fighting up the island base, it is kind of neat to see all the destruction left behind by Leon. Though I say that wasn't his Mike's handiwork, and checking up on the wreckage, Ada doesn't really seem that bothered. I just don't know why, because Mike's a champion. Then after a quick strangle session from Leon, it turns out Krauser is still alive.
Oh, Krauser, I'm sorry. I jumped the gun when I reported you dead to Wesker. Think of all the paperwork I would have to fill out if you were to show up alive.
And I think this fight is taking place while Leon is fighting Ganados down below. This really feels out of place and takes away from the encounter that Leon and Krauser had. It's also pretty rough as the combat areas are really tiny. So Krauser gets a fuckload of shots in. I guess this was meant to be canon, but really it's just something the devs threw in because they had the assets made. But at least it doesn't take place in the same map, I guess. Though really this just feels unnecessary.
That's a large thing you have there, but I don't like it when men play rough.
What doesn't feel unnecessary is this fight with Sadler. Now we get to see what happened between Ada and Sadler after all those red barrels blew up. And this fight is wholly unique. They made this fight specifically for this mode. Hell, at this point I was expecting to face U3 again or something. But no, Ada faces Sadler himself. And he feels really imposing here, almost like a tyrant. This fight is also much harder than the Sadler fight in the main game, because he's more focused and he can insta-kill Ada a lot. If she gets too far away from him, he's going to sprout tentacles out of the ground that she's going to need to dodge. And he's also got Wesker-like speed as he zooms in up to her, and he has no real weak spot either. He's just an imposing force that keeps coming. Though I say that, he does eventually expose his mouth eye. And just like the other boss fight, you gotta shoot the hell out of this. What also makes this fight difficult is the arena. It's bigger than the one we faced Krauser in, but it's still quite tiny. And comprised of 2 levels, you can't really run rings around Sadler either. And if you stay in one spot too long, he's gonna f you up. Really, this fight just feels like Sadler's playing with his food, which is made clear in the next cutscene.
Thank you. This is gonna be hard to explain at customs.
Ada's last section is essentially a time trial, as she runs around a bunch of scaffolding to get something that will help Leon. And you can't really dawdle in this section either, so sometimes I even run past Ganados because I ain't got time. And the trick here is to use the shotgun, because that just clears the path. And this being an Ada only section, the hookshot works perfectly here. And just adds to the frantic nature, because you don't know where the game's going to drop Ada next. But finally, after a bunch of swinging about like Tarzan, Ada gets to the rocket launcher, and this is the end of Sadler.
Use this!
But just like the main game, Ada takes a sample and leaves Leon a cute ride out of here. So you could say this is where they truly go their separate ways.
Don't worry, I'll take good care of it.
Ada!
Gotta go. If I were you, I'd get off this island too.
She really pushed it.
Here, catch. Better get a move on. See you around.
And that's Separate Ways, and for a free add-on you can't complain. Sure, a bunch of it is recycled assets, but Capcom turned this thing around quick. At least there are a few new levels towards the end, but as for enemies and all that, it's just the same. Though it feels like this little mode really cemented the character of Ada. She's got all of her trademarks here, the hookshot, the crossbow, and she's still in red. Though why she decided to come all this way to Spain in that dress, it's just not practical. But I'm not going to complain about something like that. Some would say this mode is fan service, but it doesn't really feel like it, as Separate Ways has really become essential to the Resident Evil story. And it helps build the Wesker plan all the way up to Resident Evil 5. Because we haven't seen this guy since Antarctica, and back then he had new weird powers. And I kind of appreciate the restraint of not having Wesker active in the situation either. He works better as a mastermind here, working in the shadows to get what he wants. But just like the main game, this does make Ada seem like a bit of a villain, and we wouldn't hear from her again in a major way until Resident Evil 6, and that game's just a mess. But for Resident Evil as a whole, Separate Ways is essential, and that's why it's been packed into every major release of Resident Evil 4 since.
This mission may be over, but the battle is just beginning.
Have you retrieved the sample?
Not yet.
There is also one other bonus mode in Resident Evil 4, and this is truly a bonus mode, because Assignment Ada is here too. Like Separate Ways, this is unlocked after beating the main story, and you play as Ada again, but in a fancy tactical outfit this time. It's even got a brief intro, but I'm pretty sure this is repurposed dialogue.
Sadler. He knows.
Ah. Your extraction chopper will pick you up at the rendezvous point as planned.
I'll be there.
Essentially, you've got to get 5 Plaga samples and get out of it, and really you just run through parts of the island again, but as Ada. It's pretty simple, and there's a reason that not many people talk about it when they review this game. And honestly, there's no point in me going through this beat by beat. You get the Plaga samples, you face Krauser again for some reason, and then you get out of it. All just to please Wesker. And the whole thing's pretty short too.
Punctual. I like that. Is Krauser there?
He's dead.
Pity. But after all, just another expendable grunt. Thanks to you, however, Umbrella's one step closer to its re-establishment. And once it is, there will be significant changes in our world.
And with that, that's Resident Evil 4, a game that had such a troubled development cycle, but ended up being one of the most influential games of its time. It also played kind of a key role in the console wars, in a sense that it proved nothing could stop the PS2. And it's quite funny that people rag on Skyrim for being ported over and over again, but Resident Evil 4 has been ported so many times I can't even count, and people still buy it. Hell, I still buy it. This is the first time I've come back to this game since I played the remake, and it still holds up, man. Like, it really still holds up. Even if you still can't move and shoot and Leon controls kind of like a tank, this game is still so playable today, and I'm pretty sure that's why it keeps getting ported everywhere. When I got this game on GameCube, it blew me away, and then I played it for countless more hours on the PS2, and somewhere in storage I got that fancy steelbook. I've got so many memories of this game, and it wasn't until I got onto the internet properly that I realised how big this game was. Now I know not everyone loves Resident Evil 4, because it essentially changed Resident Evil forever, but you've got to ask, would Resident Evil still be around if Resident Evil 4 didn't come out? I really love survival horror, but it just wasn't doing the numbers for Capcom. Code Veronica whimpered thanks in part to it coming out on the Dreamcast. Resident Evil 1 Remake didn't really sell well until it came to the PS4, and Resident Evil 0 just didn't catch on, even though there's parts of the game I really like. It's rough, but it still hits a spot. But Resident Evil 1 Remake and Resident Evil 0 really signalled the end of an era. So sure, Shinji Mikami was just making whatever the hell he wanted at some point, but what he and the other devs came up with is a true masterpiece. But shout out to all the indie devs out there keeping true survival horror alive. These guys come up with some real gems. Thanks to anyone that's made it this far. It finally feels good to come back to Resident Evil after what, a year or so absence? After my Resident Evil 3 Remake video, I did not plan to be away from Resident Evil for this long. But I'm back now, and I'm going to be covering Resident Evil games for the foreseeable future really. Next up is Resident Evil 4 Remake, and then after that, I'm definitely covering 5 and 6. So if you want to help a lad out, why not give me a like and maybe a sub? Because if you've made it this far, you must like what you've heard, or you fell asleep. Either way, it's been a pleasure covering my favourite game of all time. I've been Ben Roy, and until the next video.
No more games!
Excuse me, Salazar, that's my line. No more games.
I've rescued the subject. We're returning home.
You did it, Leon.
Thanks. You know, you're kind of cute without those glasses. Give me your number when I get back.
May I remind you that you're still on duty?
Story of my life.